This was the most notorious boys' high school in all of South Korea. Every delinquent kid had been thrown into this place. Violence and skipping class, that was their everyday life. And yet, the boy who was unbeatable across the whole school was actually a thoroughgoing romantic. To get more material for romance, Ryu Woo-jin decided to transfer to an ordinary co-ed high school. But Dupa High had one iron rule. If you wanted to leave, you had to defeat every student in Dupal, and that suited him just fine. This school, which no one had ever conquered, was completely rewritten because of his enrollment. Because in Ryu Woo-jin's eyes, strength was everything, and nothing was impossible. But when he saw the rejection notice in his inbox, this was not the result he wanted at all. Just then, a voice came from outside the door. "Hey, number one idiot. Isn't today the day the results come out?" The next second, his door was kicked open, and from that look on your face, it was obvious you got rejected again. Then she looked straight at the screen. "I bet the feedback you got is the same as always. Just as expected, too many action scenes, not suitable for the romance genre. See? You should have listened to your sister a long time ago. You idiot, why do you always insist on stuffing action scenes into romance stories?" Ryu Woo-jin admitted that his sister was right. He was a die-hard romantic, and he was determined to become a romance webtoon artist. His sister sighed. "Looks like you really have no social charm at all. I guess I'm partly responsible too. What does a guy who only knows how to fight all day understand about romance? You don't seriously think romance is some kind of joke, do you? And do your followers even know that their boss is actually a nerd obsessed with romance comics?" As his sister went further and further, Ryu Woo-jin could no longer keep his composure. He turned and grabbed his sister by the arm. "Enough. Don't push it too far. Do you really think I wouldn't dare fight back?" But the next second, a fragrant foot kicked him straight in the face. In one smooth move, she pinned him down completely. Crushed by the power of blood ties, he could not even move. "So it's because you've spent too long hanging around that dump of a school that you've completely turned into a delinquent? Or is it because it's been too long since you felt your sister's love, and now you think you can do whatever you want? Want me to help you properly remember the old days? Now you know the gap in strength between us, right? Go buy me some malatang, and bring a piece of mugwort cool cake for dessert too." After getting her favorite food, his sister looked completely satisfied. "I just love this feeling of my blood sugar skyrocketing." Meanwhile, Ryu Woo-jin was so furious he felt like destroying the world, because that one meal had cost him a full 6,500 won. "One day, I'm definitely going to settle this with you, I swear." But this kind of tough talk, he only dared say behind her back. Just then, something on the TV caught his attention again. "You're watching Titanic again? Don't you ever get tired of it?" His sister told him, "A true masterpiece is worth watching over and over again." "Sis, what do you think is the most important thing in a truly great romance story?" "It depends on whether it can really capture that sweetness between the main characters." Seeing how eager he was to learn, his sister still gave him a suggestion. "Why not look for material around you, like at school?" The moment school was mentioned, Ryu Woo-jin stiffened all over. It was an all-boys school. Just thinking about it was painful enough. Who would have thought his sister would suddenly shout, "That's it." Ryu Woo-jin thought she meant brotherly love. And no, not that. That school is already outrageous enough, and it's an all-boys school on top of that. Isn't that exactly your problem? Think about it. What do you even do at school? Other than fighting, it seemed like it was still just fighting. And everyone else seemed pretty much the same. Sometimes even the teachers joined in, and that was somehow Dupal High's midterm exam. After hearing all that, his sister nearly lost her mind. Only then did she finally understand why he kept forcing action scenes into every genre, because there wasn't even the slightest trace of romance anywhere around him. She suddenly felt this little brother of hers was genuinely a bit pitiful, and even urged him to just draw action comics instead. Ryu Woo-jin seized the chance to fire back. "You have no idea how wonderful love really is." But he also had to admit that his sister had a point. There really was something wrong with his environment. If he transferred to an ordinary co-ed school, then he could collect a huge amount of romantic material, uniform dates, love letters hidden in desks. Just thinking about it was exciting. So, he decided to transfer. His sister felt his change had come too suddenly. But on second thought, he should have left that school a long time ago anyway. So looked at that way, it wasn't a bad thing. But Dupal was a place that absolutely did not allow deserters. If he wanted to leave, there was only one way: defeat every student in Dupal. And so, the famous scene of him sweeping through the entire school appeared. The last boy, still gasping for breath, looked utterly confused. "Senior Woo-jin, why are you doing this?" This boy, named Ma Suho, was a first-year student at Dupal High. Ryu Woo-jin could only apologize to him, because this school could not give him what he wanted. Ma Suho shouted at the top of his lungs, "What is it that you want? A new powerful rival, or to conquer the whole school?" No, what this school really didn't have was material he could use to write romance stories. Ma Suho's brain crashed on the spot, and just like that, Ryu Woo-jin transferred to Danyang High. The teacher said that a transfer student had arrived today. She asked him to introduce himself. Looking at this handsome boy, the students were all thinking the same thing. He only brought a notebook, not even a backpack? Could he be some kind of delinquent? But Ryu Woojin felt that even the air here was sweet. It was completely different from Dupal High. There wasn't even the slightest smell of smoke here. For a moment, all the students began to wonder whether something was wrong with his head. But the next second, he directly opened his notebook. He started taking notes frantically, because this place was simply the perfect environment for writing romance. He had already sensed a wonderful atmosphere, but the teacher beside him just stood there blankly. If you're shy, would you like the teacher to introduce you instead? But how could that Sundara Ryu Woojin possibly admit to something like that? In that case, he might as well just do things the old Dupal High way. Nice to meet you all, you bastards. Who's the boss here? That shout was like a bomb exploding on the spot. Everyone felt a lunatic had transferred into their class, and even the teacher was so mad she laughed. What did you just say? You little punk, come to the office with me right now. Some people even thought, what era is this? It's not the 80s or 90s. What exactly is he trying to act out? At the cafeteria, Ryu Woojin sat there alone, and the moment the other students saw him, they all walked around him. In everyone's eyes, he was a lunatic, and the old-school campus thug kind too. He simply could not figure out how things had turned out like this. It was already lunch break. But let alone some romantic encounter, there wasn't even a single person willing to come talk to him. Since no one came to him, then he would take the initiative himself. But the next second, a voice suddenly came from behind him. Wow, you're even more handsome up close. Ryu Woojin froze on the spot. What kind of development was this? I heard some rumors about you, so I wanted to see for myself what kind of person you really are. Ryu Woojin instantly perked up. The rumor said you're handsome, said the girl, whose name was Yumina, a second-year student. At that very moment, Ryu Woojin felt like the whole world had changed. He could not even quite figure out what this feeling was. His heart had actually started beating faster. Don't get the wrong idea, okay? Want me to show you around the school? Was this her way of taking the initiative to get close to him? Ryu Woojin's pupils widened all at once. And so, the two of them slowly walked through the campus, one in front of the other. As they walked, Yumina introduced the school to him. If you go down that path, you'll reach the music room. If you go this way, you'll get to the gym storage room. Ryu Woojin, meanwhile, walked along taking notes like crazy. In his notebook, he wrote, a heroine who actively invites the transfer student male lead on a school tour. As long as their conversation clicks, the two will naturally grow closer. At that moment, Yumina told him, that's about it for the tour. The only place left is that gym storage room, but not many people usually come this way. I heard that storage room often gets used for dates. That one sentence struck straight into Ryu Woojin's heart. What did you say? Seeing his reaction, Yumina quickly told him to forget what she had just said. But before she could even finish speaking, Ryu Woojin had already sprinted 50 meters away. That sight left Yumina completely dumbfounded. Ryu Woojin had only one thought in his head, a place used for dates. It was exactly like he had imagined. The gym storage room at a co-ed school really was different. He even felt like romance itself was screaming at him. The next second, he rushed straight into the gym storage room. If it really was here, then he was bound to find amazing material. But what he saw instead was a completely different scene. A group of delinquents were gathered there having a meeting, staring at him with icy eyes. And what he didn't know was that not long before, Kong Jiho had approached Yumina and told her to bring Ryu Woojin to the gym storage room. Yumina knew perfectly well that those guys were obviously planning to corner Ryu Woojin, so she could only refuse tactfully, saying that she and Ryu Woojin were not close at all. But the moment she finished speaking, Ryu Woojin shoved her against the wall. If we tell you to do something, you do it. Got it? Who do you think made it possible for you and your little brother to attend school in peace? Did you forget? If you don't want to suffer, then do as you're told. Frightened, Yumina still ended up bringing Ryu Woojin near the storage room. Although Ryu Woojin did seem a little strange, he didn't seem like a bad person. At that moment, all she felt was that her future had turned completely bleak. Wasn't this openly taking part in school bullying? For someone like me, who isn't even that smart, the only thing I really have going for me is my looks. She still wanted to become a big star. If she got dragged into public controversy over school violence in the future, then everything would really be over. She clenched her fists tightly. Looks like this time, the only thing I can do is apologize to my little brother. But Ryu Woojin simply never did things the normal way. Her heart instantly sank, and she felt like this time it was really over. Meanwhile, inside the storage room, the fight had already started. One boy had already taken his stance. But before he even had a chance to throw a punch, Ryu Woojin brushed right past him and then fell to the ground himself. Several of them froze for a second, then immediately started kicking him violently. What the hell is this? Isn't this guy just trash? At that moment, the boy in green shouted, "You brought that guy here, and he didn't even throw a single punch, right, Jiho?" but Kong Jiho looked completely confused. Normally, a group beating like this followed the same process every time. Some people begged for mercy before they got hit, while some tried to act tough before they got hit, and some would stubbornly hold out until the very end for the sake of that pitiful little bit of pride. He had seen all of that with his own eyes. But real Wu Jin didn't fit any of those types. He was just muttering in a low voice about things no one could understand. Something about there being romance, but after all that it turned out to be brotherhood. What the hell was that supposed to mean? Today, I'm at least someone with a girlfriend, okay? Those words left Kong Jiho completely baffled. Only then did Ryo Woo-jin finally realize just how much hatred he had drawn that morning. But in his eyes, that had clearly just been the most ordinary duple-style greeting. He even started to suspect that his classmates avoiding him was probably because of that too. If he fought back here now, things would only get worse, so he decided to quietly take the beating first. Maybe then the misunderstanding would pass. So he quietly hid his notebook inside his clothes. As long as the notebook was fine, that was all that mattered. But of course, things still headed in the worst possible direction. The boy in green snatched his notebook away. Kong Jiho opened it and even read it aloud. Co-ed school, no smell of smoke, heroine who shows me around the school, building intimacy is entirely possible. And what's this too? Notes about Yumina. No way. Your hobby is seriously creepy. At that moment, Ryu Woo-jin had already stood up. Now on his feet, he spoke coldly. Give it back. But Kong Jiho, completely unaware of the danger, became even more unrestrained instead. A guy with no pride should just take the beating quietly, shouldn't he? Looks like this thing is really important to you. Ryu Woo-jin was already close to losing control, and his voice dropped noticeably. My notebook. I'll say this one last time. Give my notebook back. But Kong Jiho just bared his teeth in a grin. Quit pretending, you bastard. The next second, he actually started tearing it up even more dramatically. Ryu Woo-jin's eyes widened instantly. Kong Jiho seemed to relish that reaction. If you've got the guts, come pick it up yourself. The others nearby joined in with mocking voices too. Ha ha ha, it's fine. If you'd just said, please give it back, maybe I wouldn't have torn it. The next second, all their expressions changed at once. Where do you think you're going? We haven't even... Before he could even finish speaking, a fist the size of a sandbag smashed brutally into his face. The terrifying impact sent his whole body flying on the spot. Seeing this, Kong Jiho froze where he stood too. No one had expected that the guy with the buzz cut would pass out cold on the spot. And then came the next one. Ryo Woo-jin grabbed him by the head, and immediately followed with a vicious knee strike. That boy's eyes rolled back on the spot. Wait a second, the confession got ruined. Kong Jiho and the others never would have imagined that today they had kicked an iron plate. Damn it. The next second, the boy in the white shirt charged in too, throwing a punch. Ryu Woo-jin casually tossed aside the guy in his hand who had already passed out. With one kick, he slammed straight into the white-shirt boy's face. And right after that, it was the boy in green. But he couldn't even take a single punch from Ryu Woo-jin. In the end, only Kong Jiho was left standing alone. Hey, transfer student. The moment those words fell, a mist of blood exploded into the air. That's about enough from you, you punk. How can you be this arrogant, acting like you're such a big deal? In Kong Jiho's hand, there was already a baseball bat. Ryo Woo-jin merely looked at him expressionlessly. That one look actually scared Kong Jiho instead. What the hell? This guy took a hit like that and didn't even blink. And this is an iron bat, it actually got dented. Kong Jiho was completely stunned. The next second, Ryo Woo-jin grabbed the bat in one hand. So when fights break out at co-ed schools, people shamelessly use weapons too. Nice, I've got new material again. Looks like transferring to this school really was the right choice. With that, he seized Kong Jiho by the collar. That alone made Kong Jiho's legs go weak. Wait, I can apologize for hitting you. After hearing that, Ryo Woo-jin almost laughed. Apologize? What are you talking about? Do boys do that kind of thing too? Ryo Woo-jin slowly clenched his fist. Anyone who touches my most precious drafts, I will never forgive. Only at that moment did Kong Jiho finally understand that the notebook was Ryo Woo-jin's one absolute taboo. But it was already too late, because that fist was already right in front of his face. The next second, Kong Jiho went flying out together with the door. Meanwhile, Yumina was standing there facing the wall in self-reflection. Should I start studying seriously now? No, forget it. I should go apologize properly to Ryo Woo-jin first and beg him not to report me. While she was still worrying about her future, the nearby door suddenly flew off entirely, scaring her badly. Isn't that Kong Jiho? But the next second, a cold voice sounded right by her ear. Hey, can we talk for a second? I'm really disappointed right now. You actually dared to lie to me. How could you do this to me? At that moment, Ryo Woo-jin was obviously genuinely angry. Yumina was even getting a little dizzy from how he was shaking her. You beat all of Kong Jiho's group by yourself. Were you some kind of #1 fighter at your old school? Am I next? She put on a pitiful expression. But Ryo Woo-jin didn't buy it at all. There was no romance whatsoever. What exactly were you trying to do by gathering a bunch of guys together? Seriously, enough already. Yumina froze on the spot, completely unable to understand what he was talking about. Didn't you say it was a place couples often go to? A gym storage room at a co-ed school. I was really looking forward to what might be different about it, but that place was just an ordinary fighting ground. Ryo Woojin looked utterly disappointed. Yumina could only think that this guy really did have something wrong with his head. Shouldn't he be angry that Kong Ji-ho and the others tried to jump him? But for Ryo Woojin, who had dominated Dupal High, this kind of thing was routine. If there was anything that truly made him angry, it was Kong Ji-ho tearing up his precious notebook. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. He really should go back and beat them up again. Yumina hurriedly grabbed him. You need a notebook, right? I happen to have a brand new one here. The next second, she pulled out a notebook with a pink heart on the cover. Yumina had actually felt a little embarrassed, thinking Ryo Woojin would definitely dislike it. But who would have thought that Ryo Woojin would snatch it away in one motion? Then he looked up at the sky and shouted, "Romance." Yumina had never expected him to like it that much. She had even been planning to prepare another new one for him tomorrow. But the most important thing right now was to take him to the infirmary first. Only then did Yumina finally understand that Ryo Woojin had actually transferred schools just to search for romantic inspiration. She felt that he really was impressive, but even more like a madman. But in Ryo Woojin's heart, he still could not let go of his material. Did that mean he would have to transfer again? Seeing how persistent he was, Yumina said she could help him. But Ryo Woojin had just been set up once already, so naturally he was still somewhat suspicious. Yumina told him that she was the school's vice president, so helping with something this small would be no problem. She could introduce him to the couples at school, as well as those students caught up in ambiguous, almost romantic relationships. Ryo Woojin was a little surprised too. He had not expected Yumina to have that kind of position. But Yumina had her own calculations as well. As long as she made Ryo Woojin owe her a favor, then later he would have no way to expose her involvement in school bullying. No matter what, they should help Ryo Woojin treat his wounds first. But just then, someone seemed even more anxious than they were. Sorry, I'm going in first. Doctor, Eugene injured her ankle. Ryo Woojin's pupils instantly widened, as if he had discovered something extraordinary. The doctor also looked speechless after hearing that. You again, Moon Seo-jun. Don't make such a fuss. Let her sit here first. Only then did she notice Ryo Woojin and the others. You two are hurt too? Oh, it's Yumina. You're coughing badly, so wait a moment. Because he was too emotionally agitated, Ryo Woojin, whose bleeding had just stopped, started getting a nosebleed again. A Princess Carrie. Transferring to this school really was the right choice. Shin Yijin was also a second-year student, and the doctor applied medicine to her foot, saying it would get better soon. But Moon Seo-jun, standing beside her, still looked worried. Is she really okay? Shouldn't the doctor send her to the emergency room? It's just a normal sprain. Thank you, Seo-jun. Thanks to you, it was taken care of quickly. Eugene, didn't I tell you? I'll always protect you. Just like that, the two of them started radiating sweetness right in front of everyone. But Ryo Woojin was even more excited than they were, and even urged them on from the side, saying, "What are you standing around for? Hurry up and kiss." The atmosphere, which had been so nice, was instantly ruined by him. At that point, Seo-jun finally could not hold back anymore and shouted, "Are you done yet? Did a door crush your brain or something?" Yumina, who exactly is that guy? Yumina could only laugh awkwardly and say that he had just transferred in today, so why not greet him first? I'm Ryo Woojin. Oh, that's the guy who walked in asking who the boss was, like some thug from a bygone era. Ryo Woojin explained that it had actually just been a misunderstanding. There was only one reason he had transferred here, Moon Seo-jun, Shin Yi-jun, it was precisely to meet people like you. That sentence left both of them completely stunned. Moon Seo-jun in particular immediately felt disgusted. So in the end, I still have to get tangled up with a delinquent? What rotten luck. But Ryo Woojin's next sentence was even more outrageous. How long have you two been dating? The force of that question was no less than a nuclear bomb. The two of them stood there stunned for a long while, unable to recover. Dating? Me? With this person? Their expressions were almost exactly the same, and the next second they both immediately denied it, saying they were just childhood friends. But Ryo Woojin clearly did not believe them. You really aren't dating? Yumina added from the side that those two were actually quite famous at school. No matter who looked at them, it was obvious they liked each other, yet they absolutely refused to admit it. After Yumina bluntly exposed that truth, the two of them fell into awkwardness once again. Ha ha ha, forget it. We've known each other too long, so long that I almost don't even feel like she's a girl anymore. Do I not look like a woman to you? Only then did Moon Seo-jun realize he had said the wrong thing. No, that's not what I meant. I mean, this scene was exactly the kind of romantic material Ryo Woojin had been looking for. He immediately gave it a perfect score of 10 out of 10. so cute. Well then, after school, how about giving me a spot for an interview? Just then, a voice suddenly came from outside the door. Is Moon Seo-jun here? The one who had come was Choi Jin-ho, a third-year student. He had come to find Moon Seo-jun to play soccer. Eugene is here too. Hi, but Eugene is hurt right now, so it's kind of. So what? Are you hurt too? Shin Yi-jin knew all too well what kind of person Choi Jin-ho was, so she could only hurry to smooth things over. Seo-jun, I'm really fine. You should go. I can leave with me now. Ryu Woo-jin could not believe he actually left that decisively. Watching the two of them walk away, Ryu Woo-jin immediately became unhappy. Hey, aren't we supposed to do things in order? Where did you cut in from, anyway? You don't know any rules at all. The air instantly seemed to freeze. Seo-jun, didn't he already promise to accept my interview? The moment Choi Jin-ho heard that, his expression darkened immediately, and he raised a foot to go teach Ryu Woo-jin a lesson, but Moon Seo-jun stopped him in time. Big bro, wait. Choi Jin-ho lowered his head and stared at Ryu Woo-jin. What did you say? You little punk want to die? Jin-ho, that guy has a head injury, so his mind isn't very clear right now, and he only transferred here today too. Let's not stoop to the level of someone like that. Come on. At that moment, the doctor also raised a hand and pointed to one side. Don't you see the bandages over there? Blood is practically spurting out of his head. Only after everyone stopped him did Choi Jin-ho finally turn and leave. Transfer student, you'd better be careful. If I run into you again next time, you're dead. Meanwhile, Ryu Woo-jin was still thinking about what Seo-jun had said earlier. No, I look pretty normal to me. The next second, he suddenly realized something. Wait, no, I was telling you not to cut in line. Shin Yi-jin immediately covered his mouth with her clothes. Mina, hurry and hold him down. Ryu Woo-jin finally managed to break free, looking thoroughly displeased. What are you doing? What are you all doing? You only transferred here today, so maybe you still don't know this. But Choi Jin-ho is a very dangerous person. He's one of the members of the White Knight Society. Ryu Woo-jin immediately became interested. You've all been saying White Knight Society ever since earlier. So what exactly is it? Is it really enough to scare you all this badly? The White Knight Society was a local gang that tightly controlled this whole area, and there were even rumors that they had ties to a real criminal organization. Just how brutal were they? What's with that expression? I thought they were just the strongest violence group around. So then, is Seo-jun one of them too? Shin Yi-jin immediately denied it, saying of course not. Seo-jun only got called over by Choi Jin-ho to tag along because he was good at soccer. The moment Ryu Woo-jin heard that, his eyes changed at once. At that moment, the doctor added from the side that, speaking of which, last year there had been a student planning to go pro in soccer. It was said that all he had done was make a celebratory gesture that Choi Jin-ho felt insulted by. As soon as the match ended, Choi Jin-ho broke that student's leg. A once promising rising star had his dream completely destroyed just like that, yet the final punishment Choi Jin-ho received was only a 1-week suspension. Looking at it that way, the backing behind him was definitely no ordinary matter. Yumina and the others simply could not understand how someone like that was still allowed to remain at school. On the rooftop of the school building, Ryu Woo-jin drew 3 portraits. It's all because of this guy, everything got thrown into chaos. What kind of second male lead is he supposed to be? If it were just a matter of helping these two fulfill their romance and taking care of Choi Jin-ho along the way, that actually wouldn't be hard, but if the author personally stepped in to interfere, would that really be okay? He felt this was the pain of creation. It was precisely to search for romance itself that he had left his previous school. But now, in this school too, there seemed to be malignant cells that could kill romantic cells. Looks like a little cleanup is necessary. At this moment, everything on campus was reflected in his eyes. Big bro, why did you call me here? Because I have something I want to ask you. Aren't you close with Shin Yi-jin? Are you two dating? No, we're really just friends. Come on, tell me the truth. You're really not dating? Or is there actually something going on? After getting a denial, Choi Jin-ho finally revealed his true intention. He suggested that since no one was home right now, Moon Seo-jun should invite Shin Yi-jin over to hang out. He even bluntly said that he was very interested in Shin Yi-jin, and then pretended magnanimity by saying that, for the sake of their brotherhood, he would graciously step aside. By this point, Moon Seo-jun had already quietly clenched his fists. But Choi Jin-ho acted as if he hadn't noticed at all, urging him to call and invite her out immediately. Moon Seo-jun could only force himself to say that Shin Yi-jin was at cram school right now. The moment Choi Jin-ho heard that, his expression darkened instantly. If I told you to call, then call. Why are you talking so much? Moon Seo-jun felt suffocated under Choi Jin-ho's overwhelming presence. And in the end, he still dialed Shin Yi-jin's number. Seo-jun, where are you? The teacher will be here soon. Well, Eugene, Jin-ho wants us to go to his house together. The moment Shin Yi-jin heard that, she instinctively resisted, because she knew all too well what Choi Jin-ho was usually like. There was no way she dared accept an invitation like that. But Moon Seo-jun still wanted to try one more time. He said that Choi Jin-ho usually treated them pretty well, didn't he? It should be fine. They could just go say hello and come back quickly. After hanging up, Choi Jin-ho showed a playful smile. When the time comes, I'll pour you some water. Pretend to take a couple of sips, then make an excuse and leave first. That sentence made Moon Seo-jun's whole body stiffen. What about Eugene? As if the answer were obvious, Choi Jin-ho even looked frivolous. If two people are alone together, the atmosphere will naturally turn intimate. He even bragged about his experience, saying he had used this trick many times before. Hearing that, Moon Seo-jun was already seized by murderous intent, and in the next second, a scene from childhood suddenly flashed through his mind. It was something Shin Yi-jin's father had once said to him. "Thank you for keeping our little princess company. You have no idea how mischievous Yi-jin is. From now on, I'll be entrusting Yi-jin to you." But immediately after that, a sudden tragedy struck. In the end, that man died by the wall, and the one responsible had not only been driving drunk, but was also the son of a chaebol family, so the ending had been decided from the very beginning. Looking at Eugene crying in the corner, Moon Seo-jun made a vow in his heart. No matter what dangers or upheavals he might face in the future, he would give everything he had to protect Shin Yi-jin. But now, Choi Jin-ho wanted to trample that vow with his own hands. He even said that he had dated girls like Shin Yi-jin before, girls without fathers. Girls like that, lacking a sense of security, would come leaning in on their own as long as someone was just a little nice to them. The non-stop humiliation finally completely ignited the fury inside Moon Seo-jun, and in the next second, he slammed a hard punch straight into Choi Jin-ho's face. The two people beside them were dumbfounded on the spot. "What are you doing, Moon Seo-jun?" Even Ryu Woo-jin had not expected things to escalate this quickly. Choi Jin-ho looked utterly incredulous and reached up to touch the cheek he had been punched on. "Moon Seo-jun, I usually look out for you, but don't push your luck." Before he had even finished speaking, he grabbed Moon Seo-jun by the face, and slammed his whole body against the wall, while his other hand slowly clenched into a fist as well. "You bastard, didn't you say you didn't like her? What, now you can't bear to let someone else have her? Don't think that just because I let you tag along a few times, you're actually somebody." After watching everything from start to finish, Ryo Woo-jin immediately flipped open his notebook, and in an instant his whole body was filled with excitement. It was practically as if God were helping him. A male lead throwing a punch to protect the heroine. This was true romance. In his setting, in order to protect the heroine, the male lead would throw a punch at delinquent several times stronger than himself. At Duple High, he had never once seen a fight with this kind of romantic quality. He waited in eager anticipation for Moon Seo-jun to break free of the shackles of emotion, counterattack out of nowhere, and put on a classic scene of the protagonist awakening and turning the tables. But reality was that Moon Seo-jun was nothing but a punching bag from beginning to end. That listless, dispirited look of his made Ryo Woo-jin more and more anxious as he watched. "Aren't you the protagonist? Get up and fight back." But the spotlight was clearly reserved for Choi Jin-ho. He smashed yet another brutal punch into Moon Seo-jun's face, and Ryo Woo-jin was gripping his notebook so hard it was almost crumbling. "Get up! Hurry up and get up!" But Moon Seo-jun lay there motionless on the ground like a dead dog. Just then, the sound of an iron rod scraping across the ground let out a harsh screech. "Our dear little Seo-jun, whom we care about so much, I will be sure to pass the message on to Eugene for you, and tell her you were too busy to come." Just as Moon Seo-jun was about to take that blow, a pen suddenly flew straight in front of Choi Jin-ho's eyes. He froze for a moment, then flew into a rage the next second. Who was that? Which bastard threw that? And Ryo Woo-jin's figure had already dropped straight down from above. His eyes were icy cold. "You bastard who made me write a ruined plot." Choi Jin-ho was stunned on the spot. How could a person possibly appear out of midair? Right after that, he recognized Ryo Woo-jin too. Wasn't this the transfer student he had met once in the infirmary? But before he could even react, a rainstorm of fists had already come crashing into his face. His whole body was then sent flying by a direct kick, spinning several times through the air, before slamming heavily into the wall. This sudden turn of events made the other two beside them feel their hearts skip a beat. The brown-haired guy came to his senses and threw a punch, but not only was it dodged with ease, he was even grabbed by the throat by Ryo Woo-jin in the next instant. "You bastards, what did you do to our Seo-jun back then?" In the next second, he switched to grabbing his hair instead. With a terrifying impact, he smashed him straight through the wall behind him, and Ryo Woo-jin said coldly, "This is what you did back then, isn't it?" The other one immediately swung the iron rod at him. But Ryo Woo-jin was battle-hardened. With just a sidestep, he dodged it effortlessly. Then he grinned. "You guys really do love using weapons. A co-ed school shouldn't be like this." In the next second, he clenched his right fist tightly. And when that punch landed, the ground instantly burst into spiderweb-like cracks. The boy who took that blow head-on lost consciousness on the spot. He had never imagined that one day he would get beaten this badly. Moon Seo-jun was completely dumbstruck. What the heck, this transfer student is way too strong. Although he had already felt that this guy looked like a dangerous character, it turned out that appearances really did mean something after all. After taking care of Choi Jin-ho and his group, Ryo Woo-jin slowly walked over to Moon Seo-jun. "You came to help me? Thanks." Only then did Moon Seo-jun remember that he still did not know Ryo Woo-jin's name. Looking at Ryo Woo-jin reaching his hand out toward him, Moon Seo-jun got so nervous that he shut his eyes right away. But unexpectedly, Ryo Woo-jin merely bent down and picked up his ballpoint pen, and casually told him that his name was Ryo Woo-jin, and his dream was to become a romance webtoon writer. After hearing that, Moon Seo-jun's eyes lit up at first, but then immediately dimmed again. A romance webtoon? But Ryo Woo-jin had already started writing away on his own. In real life, the male lead really can't miraculously beat all the school tyrants after all. But since this is a comic, then I'll just set this action scene so that the male lead defeats all the school tyrants. With that said, he closed his notebook and reached out to ask whether Moon Seo-jun could still stand up. What came next was the highlight shot of a famous scene. Just then, Shin Yi-jin rushed out. "What gods and plots? What nonsense have you been talking about this whole time?" Ryo Woo-jin heard that and did not care in the slightest. He said this was merely the plot laid out in advance by a future webtoon artist. Moon Seo-jun was even more bewildered and could only ask Ryo Woo-jin to explain more clearly. Ryo Woo-jin gave a sly grin. "A classic confession scene. Go on, tell her how you feel." That sudden suggestion left Moon Seo-jun completely frozen. "What did you say? Who gave you permission to tell me to confess on your own? And besides, more importantly than that, why is Yi-jin here?" Faced with Moon Seo-jun's shock and panic, Ryo Woo-jin immediately gave an explanation. "When I jumped down from the rooftop just now, I tossed them a note on the way. The moment Yumina and Shin Yi-jin saw that note suddenly fly over, both of them showed expressions unlike anything they had ever shown before. On the note were the words, 'Moon Seo-jun is in danger. Hurry to the back of the school.'" After hearing that, Moon Seo-jun was tearing into him in his head, while also wondering how anyone in their right mind could do something like this. "Anyway, we're really just friends. How many times do I have to say that before you understand?" Ryo Woo-jin directly gave him a look as if he were an idiot. "For such a laughable reason, you still dared to throw yourself into a fight, and the other side was someone you clearly couldn't beat. Stop lying to yourself, kid. Let me give you one piece of advice. Someone who doesn't even dare face his own heart has no right to protect anyone." Moon Seo-jun gritted his teeth, roaring wildly in his heart. "Who do you think doesn't want to be honest? What if all of this is just my own wishful thinking? What if I really say it out loud, and in the end destroy the relationship we have now? Who would bear the consequences of that?" Sometimes, deceiving yourself is the only thing you can do. But Ryo Woo-jin could not hear his inner monologue at all, and simply walked straight over to Shin Yi-jin, muttering a bunch of things no one could understand. But just from the expressions on their faces, it was obvious that nothing good was coming of it. The feelings Shin Yi-jin had suppressed for so long seemed to be pried open in an instant, and she directly threw her jacket over Moon Seo-jun's head. "I heard about it. You were the one who attacked Choi Jin-ho first. Have you lost your mind? And what was that about doing it to protect me?" Even Ryo Woo-jin had not expected that Shin Yi-jin also had a habit of covering people up with a jacket. This plot direction seemed a little off. With his head covered by the jacket, Moon Seo-jun still refused to admit defeat. "Because we made a promise, didn't we? Don't tell me you thought I was just repaying a favor." Because of that promise, Shin Yi-jin also remembered the words her father had left behind when they were children. "I'll be entrusting Yi-jin to you from now on. Please take good care of her." But Moon Seo-jun said that it was not like that at all. In the next second, Shin Yi-jin suddenly burst into tears. "I never wanted you to get covered in injuries just to protect me." Those words were like something tearing straight open the deepest wound inside Moon Seo-jun's heart. At last, he gathered his courage and said all the words he had hidden for so long. "I really don't want to keep seeing the people I treasure suffer those humiliating and painful things because of me. Because I like you, that's why I want to protect you." When Shin Yi-jin heard that, her whole body froze. "What did you just say?" But in the next second, Moon Seo-jun was the first one to retreat instead. No, what I meant by like is that kind of like between friends." But at that exact moment, Ryo Woo-jin's words from earlier rang out in his mind again. Someone who doesn't dare face himself, someone who doesn't dare be honest with himself, has no right to protect anyone. He finally confessed out loud, "I like you. The kind of like that goes beyond friendship. I've liked you for a long time. I'm sorry. I've never thought of you as just an ordinary friend." The lock that had weighed on his heart for years was finally opened completely, and Moon Seo-jun felt as though his whole body had grown lighter. But for all of this, he really did have to thank Ryo Woo-jin. Shin Yi-jin kissed him straight through the jacket, and the impact of that scene left Moon Seo-jun completely frozen. Shin Yi-jin looked at him and gave him an incomparably radiant smile. "Idiot. The words, 'I like you,' were actually something I wanted to say even earlier than you did." Seeing that scene, Ryo Woojin felt a jolt in his chest. As for Moon Seo-jun, his face was full of disbelief. Then if that's what you mean, does that mean we're dating now? Ryo Woojin was already so excited he could barely take it. This was way too romantic. He was about to lose it. This mouthful of lovey-dovey sweetness had set him ablaze. Looking at Ryo Woojin, who was erupting like a volcano over there, Moon Seo-jun had no idea what on earth he was going crazy about. Clearly he was the one who had fallen in love, not him. But at this moment, Ryo Woojin looked like he had practically been burned black all over. He was still muttering under his breath. Sure enough, transferring to this school was so worth it. The whole tone instantly fell apart. Moon Seo-jun scooped him up in his arms and shouted to the sky, "Ryo Woojin." Just then, the infirmary door was kicked open, and the doctor spat out the coffee she had just taken into her mouth. "What is it now? Don't tell me Yi-jin's hurt again." Moon Seo-jun hurriedly explained that the one who was hurt was Ryo Woojin. The teacher looked like she was about to lose her mind, scolding them for always causing trouble outside while still hurrying to make Ryo Woojin lie down. But no one knew that, while being carried in a princess carry, Ryo Woojin was actually feeling a little emotional inside. Somehow, this feeling was unexpectedly reassuring and comforting. But he had no idea that because of his transfer, Dupal High had long since fallen into chaos. A girl named Lee Ruta jumped straight down from the 3rd floor. But strangely enough, she was completely fine, and most importantly, she had only just been discharged from the hospital today. Ma Suho covered his forehead with one hand. "This is bad, Senior Cha-im. She's already found out that Senior Woojin transferred schools. Didn't the whole school already know about that? Back then, a whole group of us went at him together, and we still got completely wrecked. That's not even the real problem here. That Lee Ruta, back then, she was still lying in the hospital with both arms broken. Only then did Cha-im realize. If that's the case, then Ryo Woojin didn't even fight everyone in the school that day. But honestly, even if we counted Lee Ruta in, we still don't think we could have won." After recovering from her injuries and learning that Ryo Woojin had already transferred, all that remained in Lee Ruta's heart was resentment. She did not think she had stayed away because she was scared. To her, this was an insult, a sign that she had been looked down on. April arrived, and the lingering chill gradually faded away. The flowers had all bloomed, and spring had officially come. In Ryo Woojin's eyes, spring was also the season most suited for romance to bloom. He bared his teeth in a grin. "Hey, nice material. Nice, everyone's gathered, huh?" And beneath the cherry blossom trees had become a place for couples to date. One couple who had only started dating 2 hours earlier were already being sickeningly sweet. The boy gently fed the girl. To Ryo Woojin, a scene like this was one of the most classic iconic moments in romance comics. A boyfriend feeding his girlfriend fam, too sweet. He excitedly recorded it at top speed. But the girl quickly noticed his creepy gaze. "Appa, that person is so scary. He's been staring at us like a pervert this whole time." But the boy did not take it seriously at all. "Isn't he just some high school kid?" Seeing the way Ryo Woojin looked like he was practically drooling, the boy only thought this was the typical face of some truant punk wandering around. The boy was very confident in his own abilities. He was even a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. In the next second, he walked straight over, planning to teach Ryo Woojin a lesson, and the girl was instantly charmed by how cool he looked. "Hey, brat, you've been getting on my nerves for a while now. What exactly do you want?" Ryo Woojin was the one who froze instead. Someone had actually delivered himself right to his doorstep. He even started considering whether to conduct a deep interview, but a mosquito that suddenly flew over directly interrupted his train of thought. At the end of his patience, he raised his hand and slapped it down. And as a result, a large section of the flower bed collapsed on the spot. Damn mosquito, already rushing out in April just to annoy people. "Sorry, big bro, but what exactly did you want?" The boy immediately activated the power of money. That, instead, completely threw Ryo Woojin off. "This guy, at least let me finish what I'm saying first. It's not what you think." But the series of mishaps had already made this boy lose all face, and the girl was utterly disappointed too. "Appa, don't you have even this little self-respect? Let's break up." "No, Ji-sun." Ryo Woojin instantly looked awkward. He had forcibly broken this couple apart. It was all because he had not controlled his strength properly just now and had completely ruined everything. He silently reminded himself that from now on, he had to be much more careful. At this moment, the soccer field was lively as could be. At the side of the field, Eugene was loudly cheering for Moon Seo-jun the whole time. The next second, he lifted his foot and shot. The ball went in. "Wow, there it is, Seo-jun's curved banana shot. Did you see that perfect arc? It was practically like Roberto Carlos. So cool." The next second, he even directly paid tribute to Cristiano Ronaldo, and then lifted up his shirt, revealing the words on his t-shirt, "Eugene, I love you." Ryo Woojin felt that this confession was far too romantic, expressing love through a goal celebration. Once again, he had harvested perfect material. Shin Yijin turned to look at him. Woojin, don't tell me you're only getting to school now? No matter what, you should still get here earlier. But Ryu Woojin suddenly asked about Choi Jinho, wanting to know whether they had clashed again afterward. Shin Yijin told him that Choi Jinho had not come back to school even once since that day. No matter what happens, if anything comes up, you have to tell me immediately. But what Shin Yijin was actually more worried about was him. He had provoked the White Knight Society, yet nothing had happened to him even now. That was far too abnormal. She had even already started imagining the worst. Could they be planning to target me first, and then come after you? If you really need help, all of us. Before she could finish, Ryu Woojin directly cut her off, saying he would keep an eye on the matter and handle it himself. He only hoped that Moon Seojun and Shin Yujin could continue getting along peacefully. That would already be the greatest help to him. In the next second, a soccer ball slammed straight into his face. Hey, stay away from Eugene. It seemed that Moon Seojun was jealous. Instead of getting angry, Ryo Woojin burst out laughing. Your boyfriend is all puffed up with jealousy. After that, she turned to ask Shin Yijin whether she knew where Yumina was right now. At that moment, Yumina was filming a short video. She set the timer to 3 seconds. After walking to the designated spot, she began to dance. Her movements were light, with a touch of playfulness. Ryu Woojin suddenly popped up behind her. What are you doing? That instantly startled her. She could not understand at all how Ryu Woojin had found this place so precisely, but all of Ryu Woojin's attention had fallen on her phone. Oh wow, filming TikTok, huh? Yumina was instantly alarmed. If you press that, then the video will. In the next second, she quickly snatched the phone back. You mean you want me to keep introducing you to new material? Seojun and Eugene are doing great now, and haven't your relationships with everyone gotten closer too? But Ryu Woojin felt that when it came to material, naturally the more the better. Yumina was full of worries. Back then, she had agreed to help Ryu Woojin only because she was afraid he would report the bullying. But now, Ryu Woojin even dared to provoke an organization like the White Knight Society. Continuing to get entangled with him was simply too dangerous, and she had long since realized that Ryu Woojin would never actually do something like report her. So now she only wanted to hurry and find some excuse to get away. In the next second, her foot slipped. Ryu Woojin hurriedly reached out to steady her. Are you okay? That instantly made her blush. She quickly pulled away from Ryu Woojin, absent-minded all over, with her head full of other thoughts. Ryu Woojin, however, mistakenly thought she was racking her brains to help him think of new material, and even sincerely praised her for being kind and thoughtful, which immediately filled Yumina with a wave of guilt. In the next second, the class bell rang. Yumina immediately took the chance to say she was going back to the classroom, conveniently using class time to sort out material, then hurried off. She could only feel that Ryu Woojin had nearly become obsessed with material. If this kept going, sooner or later her own brain was going to have problems too. Looking at her reflection in the window, she remembered that brief and subtle little moment from just now again. She even regretted not having recorded that image in time. After pulling himself together a little, Ryu Woojin also decided to go into the classroom for class. After all, he had just learned an extremely useful little trick from Shin Yijin. He told Shin Yijin that ever since middle school, he had never seriously attended class again. Shin Yijin was curious where he usually went when he skipped class, and Ryu Woojin answered, outside. Combined with his outrageous fighting ability, Shin Yijin immediately concluded that he was the type of delinquent who hung around campuses, but Ryu Woojin immediately denied it. He had simply, before he knew it, gotten used to that kind of life long ago. And behind it all, there was actually a reason. Shin Yijin understood it even less. What possible reason could there be for skipping class? Ryu Woojin wanted very much to explain that in the school he used to attend, fighting was everything, and the law of the jungle was all that mattered, because that place was not somewhere people studied and learned at all. But in the end, those kinds of words still would not come out. As for attending class, only the weak did that. A way of thinking like that was practically the same as directly denying the entire Korean education system. But Shin Yijin felt that, as a creator of romance stories, was it really appropriate for him to say something like that? Clearly, the classroom was where iconic moments and heart-fluttering scenes were most likely to happen. For example, secretly passing notes behind the teacher's back. Or that faintly suggestive moment when borrowing an eraser, could you help me pick up my eraser? Or for example, the two of them sharing one textbook together. As a romance comic writer, were you really going to miss all of those most classic heart-racing scenes? Those words struck Ryu Woojin directly. I will attend class properly and seriously. Ryu Woojin sincerely thanked Shin Yijin. Thanks to her, he could finally dig up even more romance material now. He only felt that it had been a very long time since he had been this fired up and full of motivation. Just how different could classes at a co-ed school really be? As class time drew near, the students checked with one another whether the next class was chemistry. someone suddenly remembered they had not finished their homework and hurried off to borrow the class monitor's notes to save themselves. But those came at clearly marked prices, 5,000, not one less. Noticing that the strict chemistry teacher had already arrived, everyone quickly returned to their seats. But this teacher was particularly unusual. He actually had a greatsword strapped to his back. Judging just by his face, he was actually an old man, and even his name was strange, Yasuo. When he was young, it was precisely because of that name that he was endlessly ridiculed and bullied by others. But everyone who had laughed at him in the end got beaten into the ground by him. Insulting him was one thing, but insulting the One Peon Beast clan was a capital offense. In order to defend the dignity of his family, he became the school tyrant everyone feared in his youth. But during that rebellious period of his youth, one mentor completely changed his life. You have talent in science. In the future, you can become a teacher. But before that, first beat him senseless. Afterward, the man spoke to him earnestly. Go guide students and straighten out the school atmosphere. And the results of his teaching were indeed very remarkable. Even the once arrogant and overbearing Kong Jiho had once received some of his care, and now in class, he had become obedient to an extreme. By the time Ryu Woojin reached the classroom door, he realized class had already started. The eyes of the entire class instantly fell on him, and no one had expected that there would actually be someone this gutsy. Kong Jiho even gritted his teeth. Ryu Woojin, you're actually still at this school. After all, after that day, he had completely disappeared, so Kong Jiho had thought Ryu Woojin had already transferred away long ago. At that moment, the girl in the front row hurriedly spoke up to warn him. Sit down, quickly. Teacher Yasuo is really scary. You just transferred here, and you're already going to crash into him head-on like some reckless idiot? Yasuo also seemed to have discovered a new toy and decided to properly discipline Ryu Woojin. Ryu Woojin was stunned for a moment at first. And what came next was corporal punishment. That instantly made Kong Jiho feel delighted. Now you've really embarrassed yourself completely. This time, you're totally done for. But in the very next second, Yasuo directly told him to shut up. Kong Jiho instantly lost all his swagger. It seemed that discipline in a co-ed classroom really was strict, but what was with this strange stillness? There even seemed to be a strange fragrance drifting over. Yasuo did not expect Ryu Woojin to notice it, and told him that it was a Japanese samurai sword. The kind of thing sprinkled on takoyaki. Ryu Woojin was even more confused instead. Using food to talk nonsense like that, what exactly was he trying to do? Shut up. This is an ultra-aged wooden sword specially custom-made for me by a Japanese craftsman. Its hardness is enough to smash your skull open with ease. Just as he said, the ground was knocked into a small dent. Then Yasuo began writing on the blackboard. Why didn't you come to a single class before this? I had a somewhat special educational environment. Oh, so you were homeschooled. In that case, you should be able to solve a problem of this level, right? Ryu Woojin was genuinely stunned. What was this guy suddenly doing? Yasuo told him that he simply wanted to confirm whether Ryu Woojin could keep up with the class progress. In Yasuo's view, when dealing with someone like him, compared with simply using force, crushing and tormenting him mentally was the more effective method. Those school tyrants and delinquents loved pretending they were strong, so then let him completely expose his humiliation in front of the whole class, socially die on the spot, and make a complete fool of himself. He wore an expression like his scheme had succeeded, feeling that this move of his was absolutely perfect. But the very next second, he was thoroughly slapped in the face. Ryu Woojin directly gave the correct answer. Yasuo refused to believe it at all. Damn it, so there really are school thugs who are good at studying. But even so, Yasuo was determined to make Ryu Woojin understand today what real suppression meant. So he threw out several more questions in a row, but Ryu Woojin answered every single one of them with ease, and even found them simple. For the first time, Yasuo felt defeated. How can you even solve these problems? I already studied them in advance back in middle school. Speaking of which, was this what co-ed classes were actually about, just solving this kind of problem? Thank you very much. I got some excellent material. Those words were practically like grinding his face against the ground, and they completely ignited Yasuo's anger. In the next second, a hand was raised. Teacher, stop messing around already and hurry up and teach. The one who spoke was class president Hong Juwon, the second-ranked student in the whole school. The whole class instantly burst into laughter. In the end, the class president had stepped in after all, and everyone started chiming in too. Just teach already. Yasuo felt this was utterly ridiculous. In the end, he was the one who had embarrassed himself and socially died. If this kept up, there was no way he could continue his disciplinary work. His thoughts suddenly returned to his teacher's guidance from back then. No, just making them embarrass themselves and lose face in public. Can such a low-level tactic really discipline those school tyrants and delinquents? Then what else can be done? These days there are student rights and all kinds of regulations. Corporal punishment has long been banned. Yasuo gripped his water cup tightly. That's true, but if there really is no other way, then it can only be done like this. Are you saying, to give up? Your name is Ryo Woojin, right? Stay behind after class. It seemed Yasuo still had no intention of giving up. He was preparing to properly teach Ryo Woojin a lesson in private. In the gymnasium, the two stood facing each other. Ryo Woojin could not help asking, is this extra tutoring? Something like that. Although I really did miss a lot of classes before, I think listening in class won't be any obstacle for me at all. But even as he was speaking, Yasuo's wooden sword had already swept across. Ryo Woojin leaned backward and easily dodged it. A cold voice followed. If I remember right, corporal punishment is banned, isn't it? Corporal punishment? I have no idea what you're talking about. This is nothing more than sparring. Ryo Woojin had not expected Yasuo to be this shameless either. I, too, once had a time when I was recklessly rebellious and unruly, just like you. But unlike you, I met the right guide, and only then did I become what I am now. He was convinced that Ryo Woojin was not bad by nature, but merely lacked someone who could guide him. So let me, as your teacher, personally teach you, using this rod of discipline filled with love. The intense collision even stirred the air around them. Even Yasuo himself was shocked. Ryo Woojin's skills were far more outrageous than he had imagined. You're not an ordinary school thug. Ryo Woojin did not respond. I already guessed it would be like this, so I specifically went to look through your student records. The moment Ryo Woojin heard that, his heart tightened. Damn, has the fact that I transferred from Dupal High been exposed? But he had clearly overthought it. Yasuo said that Ryo Woojin's high school transfer records had been completely deleted. It was as though someone had deliberately erased that information and hidden it on purpose. Ryo Woojin was stunned after hearing it too. He had never deleted anything. So who had done it? That only made Yasuo even more curious. What exactly was your real identity? In the next second, he was the one who froze instead. The supposedly indestructible wooden sword now had only the hilt left. Where had my firewood sword gone? Ryo Woojin slowly clenched his fist. Although I don't know what that means, you really were scared just now, weren't you? At that moment, Yasuo finally reacted too, and even started stammering. Don't tell me, you caught it just now and even snatched away my firewood sword in the process? In his eyes, Ryo Woojin was far too dangerous. If someone like that continued to stay at Danyang High, the consequences would be unimaginable. This school would become the worst school in history, the same kind of trash school as Dupal High. He absolutely would not allow that to happen. That was a school that had long since become hopeless, filled with riots and chaos, a rotten school beyond saving. With a 99.9% rate of producing gang members, it was a completely hopeless dump. Even if he had to stake his teaching career on it, he had to stop Ryo Woojin. He had to stop Ryo Woojin no matter what. He swore that he would personally defeat Ryo Woojin. In the next second, Yasuo suddenly lost his strength and fainted directly to the ground. Ryo Woojin also froze. Are you okay? Do you want me to help you to the infirmary? But even at a time like this, Yasuo was still worrying about the school. What exactly did you transfer to this school for? If you're trying to throw this school into chaos too. Ryo Woojin told him that he had come to look for romance material. Yasuo apologized on the spot. What? How should I put it? I used to go to an all-boys middle school and an all-boys high school. But, I want to become a romance webtoon writer. Looking at Ryo Woojin's incomparably serious eyes, he did not look like he was lying at all. In the end, Yasuo could only squeeze out one sentence. Impressive. In the very next second, he completely fainted. Actually, Ryo Woojin felt a little nostalgic inside. It had been a long time since he had fought with a teacher, and this feeling reminded him of his days at Dupal High. He wondered how those classmates from back then were doing now. Just then, a voice entered his ears. In the next second, I found you, Senior Woojin. The moment he heard that voice, cold sweat instantly broke out on Ryo Woojin's face. He knew that voice far too well. Lee Ruta. Long time no see, Senior. Lee Ruta jumped straight down from above. Her eyes were full of the excitement of spotting prey. Ryo Woojin still could hardly believe it. Lee Ruta, why are you here? He had never told anyone that he had transferred schools, and he simply could not understand how she had found this place. When Lee Ruta heard that, she bared her teeth in a grin. Because there is one person I've always been watching and always been tracking. In the next second, she took out her phone from her sleeve. But immediately afterward, the phone fell straight to the ground. Because both her hands were injured, even picking up a phone looked difficult for her. Ryo Woojin was dumbfounded watching her. This girl, do you want me to help you? After failing to pick it up several times in a row, Lee Ruta simply kicked the phone toward him. See for yourself. Ryo Woojin's eyes widened on the spot. The person on the phone screen was Yumina, and this was the one Lee Ruta had been tracking all along. Because this video had gone massively viral at the time, instantly exploding across the internet. The amount of discussion was overwhelming, and it was exactly because of this video that Lee Ruta noticed that face, familiar, yet also nostalgic. Ryo Woojin covered his face with one hand. Influencers really do bring endless trouble. But in Lee Ruda's eyes, this was simply heaven's blessing. Even before that, strange rumors about Ryo Woojin had already started to spread. The rumor said that you were going to become a romance webtoon writer, senior, and that's why you dropped out and left. But in the end, the moment she had just transferred over, she saw Ryo Woojin beating up teachers everywhere. Only then was Lee Ruda finally relieved. Ryo Woojin was still the same old Ryo Woojin, and as for those rumors, they collapsed on their own. After hearing that, Ryo Woojin immediately denied it, stressing that he had not beaten up any teacher at all. Lee Ruda, however, said that in her memory, Ryo Woojin's goal had always been to dominate every school in the country. Ryo Woojin immediately barked at her to stop talking nonsense. What kind of ridiculous idea was that? Lee Ruda said the evidence was plainly right there, but then she changed the subject and said she had not expected that Ryo Woojin wanting to become a romance webtoon writer was actually true. While helping Yasuo up, Ryo Woojin warned Lee Ruda with a serious expression that she absolutely must not spread the news that he was studying here, and he also told her to disappear from in front of him immediately. Ryo Woojin himself actually knew very well that even if he was no longer loudly stirring up trouble now, his reputation and public image had long since hit rock bottom. If people found out he had come from that place too, then it would become even more impossible for him to get along with everyone normally. After all, on the very first day he came here, he had already made such a huge fool of himself. He had only just finally recovered from that and barely managed to find his footing. After hearing that, Lee Ruda only felt like her brain could not keep up. What exactly do you mean by that? You're not fighting anymore? All for some trivial little love romance? Ryo Woojin then said that he had never put matters of love and romance first. But the moment his words fell, the soul of a shoe had already appeared before his eyes. Ryo Woojin was sent flying backward on the spot, smashing hard into the wall. The abnormal loud noise instantly drew the attention of Moon Seojun and Shin Yijin. After the dust settled, Ryo Woojin's figure reappeared. He was still clamping Yasuo tightly in his arms. Ryo Woojin's gaze darkened. Are you crazy? Lee Ruda, that attack just now was aimed to kill, wasn't it? Lee Ruda revealed what she was really thinking. She had originally come to support Ryo Woojin in continuing toward his goal of conquering the whole country's schools. But now, her thoughts had completely changed. She had decided to force Ryo Woojin to drop out and bring him back to Duple Boys High. And the first step was to beat Yasuo until he was unrecognizable and cripple him completely. Left with no choice, Ryo Woojin could only take the man out into the street first to move him away, shouting as he ran, "Move! Hurry up and move!" As for the pedestrians who could not get out of the way in time, he could only apologize to them in his heart. The moment he rushed to a T-junction, he slammed on the brakes. But Lee Ruda's attack had already arrived, and he barely dodged it by a hair. After missing that strike, Lee Ruda was clearly somewhat disappointed. Ryo Woojin seized the chance, turned, and ran. "Don't run, senior. Come and fight me properly." At this point, Ryo Woojin was genuinely furious. He felt Lee Ruda was simply insane, endlessly relentless. What he could not understand even more was that even with both arms injured, she could still run so fast. Maintaining balance and stabilizing her center of gravity like that, did it not hurt at all? Suddenly, a flash of inspiration struck his mind. Since her arms were already injured that badly, in the next second, he directly prepared to jump up onto the rooftop. The moment he leaped up there, he felt completely smug, and even shouted provocatively at Lee Ruda, "Jr., can't get up here, can you?" He was actually repeatedly mocking and humiliating an injured person, as expected of the strongest of the two schools' forces, but using injury as an excuse. In the next second, she planted one foot on the wall, and sprinted all the way upward by stepping on the wall. Ryo Woojin was stun numb on the spot. "I'm not some member of your two-school crowd, you ignorant idiot. Damn it, no matter what." He had to get Yasuo moved somewhere safe first. While shouting Yasuo's name, he checked whether the man had already passed out and urged him to go back to school first. But Yasuo clearly replied that he was in excellent condition right now, his blood boiling with excitement as if he had returned to his prime. Ryo Woojin was genuinely dumbfounded. "Big bro, who exactly are you?" Yasuo said that because of this long-awaited battle, his blood had started burning again, so he had recovered to his original state. Ryo Woojin only felt that this sounded utterly ridiculous. Who on earth gets younger the more they fight? But Yasuo told him that this had always been his original appearance, and that he was only 30 years old this year. This was called stress-induced aging. For a moment, Ryo Woojin could not even imagine what Yasuo had gone through. Yasuo himself was also helpless. As for Ryo Woojin, he simply could not find any legal and proper way to discipline him. But Lee Ruda actually dared to attack a teacher despite this being their very first meeting. Her audacity was simply outrageous. Ryo Woojin immediately added another jab from the side. That's right, she had just said she was going to beat Teacher Ya into a complete wreck and cripple him outright. When Yasuo heard that, he also felt that Lee Ruda's hostility was far too intense. Someone like Lee Ruda was not someone ordinary people could handle at all, so he said that he would think of a way to stop her and told Yasuo to go hide somewhere safe first. This hostility is obviously directed at you. Someone like me. She doesn't even take seriously at all. She probably just wants to use me as a bargaining chip to threaten you. The proof is, before he could finish speaking, Lee Ruda's foot had already kicked up to right in front of Ryu Woojin's neck. Ryu Woojin let out an "oh," realizing that it really was true. But Yasuo moved a step ahead and blocked Lee Ruda's attack with both arms. At that moment, Lee Ruda was also full of confusion. Just who exactly was this person? Could he really be that old man from just now? Then let's properly greet each other first. Nice to meet you, brat, get lost. Yasuo replied to her directly, not a chance. Ryu Woojin was his student, and even if anyone was going to fight him, it should be him. In the first round, Lee Ruda was forced back directly. Woojin, go first. I'll hold her off here. But Ryu Woojin still could not stop worrying. He said plainly that Lee Ruda was very strong and absolutely not someone an ordinary person could handle. But Yasuo was unusually confident, saying that he was currently in the absolute prime of his body. An obstacle like this in front of him was something he could overcome with ease, and he repeatedly urged Ryu Woojin to hurry and leave. The scene before him instantly made Ryu Woojin, as a romance comic creator, think of a classic manga setup. The male lead willingly staying behind alone to protect someone else, while the female lead was forced to flee. And Lee Ruda was the villain. A woman, just for the sake of a mere woman, he was even prepared to throw away his life. Idiot. And Yasuo was the heroic male lead saving the beauty. Go, I'll hold her off here. As for Ryu Woojin, he was the protected heroine. His thoughts exploded in an instant. He only felt that this scene was far too romantic. His mind began frantically constructing matching lines and plot developments, and he even started struggling over how, according to manga settings, the weaker side ought to choose. That left even Yasuo and Lee Ruda staring in shock. They were supposed to be fighting side by side, but by the setting, the opponent was clearly an overwhelmingly powerful enemy that could not be defeated. If instead of escaping here, they went together toward destruction, then that would be the greatest betrayal and contempt toward the man who had staked his life on this. So in his heart, he decided on the male lead's line, I'll hold them off here, hurry and run, and the female lead's line would be. At that moment, Yasuo, no longer able to endure it, shouted directly, why aren't you gone yet? Get lost. Okay, Appa. That one line instantly shattered Yasuo's composure. What did that brat just say? But what he never could have imagined was that the one whose composure shattered was also Lee Ruda. What exactly is your relationship with Senior? What nonsense are you two talking about? In the next second, she let out a cold snort. I'll personally ask Senior about his real purpose later. But putting that aside, weren't you hitting a little too hard? Yasuo answered her coldly, telling her not to get too arrogant. He was a teacher, and teachers were supposed to protect their students. He said plainly that the fact she had failed to attack Ryu Woojin just now was simply because she had been lucky. Now he would let her witness the swordsmanship passed down from his ancestors. Lee Ruda could only feel that Yasuo's oppressive aura at this moment was absurdly intense. Had he really powered up? Swordsmanship of Night. First form, Night. That terrifying presence forced Lee Ruda to scream again and again. She even felt the illusion that she had already been cut down. This is my Yasuo in his prime. In the next second, Lee Ruda stood there completely unharmed, and both of them froze on the spot. Only then did Yasuo realize that his wooden sword had long since been reduced to nothing but a short handle. The air instantly became awkward. In the next second, a huge foot slammed viciously into his face. Right in front of him, Lee Ruda kicked Yasuo flying away with one blow. Yasuo immediately realized that her strength was extremely great. If both sides fought at full power, then even an expert like him would be thrown into danger. After one round of direct exchanges, the situation ultimately turned into a one-on-one duel. Ryu Woojin clenched his teeth tightly. The sound of fighting on the rooftop was so intense that the people downstairs even got the wrong impression and thought the military was doing construction outside. That was because every kick from Lee Ruda was incomparably vicious, and she was still asking Ryu Woojin in return whether this felt exhilarating, whether this made him happy. Ryu Woojin was truly speechless and could only keep dodging desperately while complaining. But Lee Ruda kept urging him to respond seriously, to fight like a real battle, to completely let loose and have a proper all-out fight. Seeing the way he was now, she even suspected that after transferring schools, Ryu Woojin had never truly fought seriously again. That was actually true. Even when dealing with people like Kong Jiho, Ryu Woojin had always been deliberately holding back. She knew Ryu Woojin too well. If he really got serious, then even she would have to lie in the hospital for half a year. But he still refused to respond. Ryu Woojin had transferred schools for the sake of so-called romance. To her, that reason was nothing but utter bullshit. Faced with a desk flying straight at him, Ryu Woojin could only grit his teeth and take it head-on. Who would have thought that in the next second? Lee Ruda had already appeared above his head and, without the slightest hesitation, brought down a kick. While blocking, Ryu Woojin told her to stop before going too far. All he wanted was romance. Seeing that he was still so stubbornly obsessed, Lee Ruda's attacks only became fiercer. "You are violence itself. But I was saved by that very violence." From that moment on, Ryu Woojin became the idol in her heart. Back then, it was precisely because of Ryu Woojin that she went to Dupo Boys High. As that resentful kick came crashing down, the floor was smashed through on the spot, and the woman working downstairs screamed in fright. And Ryu Woojin lay there quietly in the rubble, while Lee Ruda stood above him, breathing heavily. Wasn't Duple High that school tucked away in some mountain hollow, rotten like a cesspit? But even so, she had still gone there without hesitation. So it turned out that Lee Ruda had always hidden an unforgettable past in her heart. The one who had once saved her was not a friend, not family, not a teacher, and not even a police officer on duty, but the Ryu Woojin standing before her now. He had once said to Lee Ruda that in order to protect everything precious in your heart, you have to desperately become stronger. Become the strongest person in this world. Lee Ruda was completely moved by those words. Even though she had no evidence to prove it, deep in her heart she was convinced that the person before her would one day stand at the pinnacle of the strongest. Influenced by Ryu Woojin, even though she herself felt fear in her heart, she still decided to follow him, willing to stake her life on staying by his side, wanting only to keep walking that road with him. But that sincerity was rejected. No matter how much Lee Ruda thought about it, she could not understand it, and she kept questioning him, asking why he was blocking her from moving forward, even asking in return whether he was that chairman who had staked his life on it. But that was not what she meant at all. The only person who had truly staked everything to walk this path, from beginning to end, was herself alone. But afterward, she still took the initiative to apologize, admitting that she had formed prejudice against others based only on appearances, and only told him that he absolutely had to keep working hard. Not long after, the straightforward Lee Ruda reported to Duple High. As a new incoming first-year student, she skillfully used the school style of greeting. "Long time no see, you bastards. I'm here to enroll." The moment she said that, even the chairman burst out laughing, feeling that she really did not know the height of heaven or the depth of earth. But it was exactly that flamboyant personality that made the chairman like her even more, and he agreed on the spot to let her enroll. But when he turned to her enrollment file, he realized something was wrong. Because Duple High had originally been an all-boys school, yet the gender recorded on Lee Ruda's file was female. Faced with the chairman's shocked gaze, Lee Ruda did not care at all and directly stated that something like gender meant nothing on the battlefield. Duple High had always been a place where the strong fought and slaughtered one another. Only the strongest person had the right to stand at the top. Those words instantly stirred the chairman's interest. He admired Lee Ruda's boldness. Not only did he promise that he would help fulfill all her wishes, he even announced on the spot that he would change the century-old boys' school Duple High into a co-ed school. And when Lee Ruda personally revealed her identity, even Ryu Woojin was completely shocked. No one had expected that this overwhelmingly imposing new student would actually be a girl. Meanwhile, another fight ended sloppily. Jin Jian only felt that this level of intensity did not even count as post-meal exercise. Instead, he began to miss the days when Ryu Woojin had been there. At that moment, Ma Suho hurried over. Jin Jian had originally wanted to pull him into a spar, but what the other man brought instead was shocking news. A female student had transferred in. After hearing it, Jin Jian looked completely indifferent. But the news of a female student transferring in instantly exploded across the whole school. The boys on campus fell into complete chaos, with noise and discussion everywhere. Some even complained that the chairman was still doing things as randomly as ever. Jin Jian, however, felt there was nothing remarkable about it. It was not even the first time anyway. That left even Ma Suho dumbfounded. Who else was there? Lee Ruda. That level of impact was practically like a nuclear bomb. What, you didn't know? By the way, how many times did you show off your muscles in front of her? At that point, Ma Suho only then belatedly realized that he had actually had no idea the school had been changed into a co-ed school, and he could not help complaining that for such a huge matter, no one had informed him in advance. Right then, a loud crash came from behind them. The new transfer student Jang Jiamhee appeared, and Ma Suho shouted in shock, "It's her." The girl even deliberately greeted them in Dupo Hai's way. This time, she had transferred here specifically to find Lee Ruda. But after learning that the other girl was not there, Jang Jiamhee's face instantly filled with disappointment. She frankly admitted that her purpose in transferring was to fight truly powerful women. Since that wish had fallen through, she proposed on the spot that she would first have a match with Jin Jian. Jin Jian did not hesitate in the slightest and directly accepted the challenge. Even Ma Suho could not help sighing that he had agreed far too straightforwardly. Then he thought of Ryu Woojin again. Back then, it was precisely because Duple High had been an all-boys school that he had chosen to transfer away. He had once said that that school could no longer satisfy what he was pursuing. Ma Suho guessed that he probably knew nothing at all about the school's change. At this moment, Ryu Woo-jin was leaning against the wall like a quail. After learning the news that Lee Ruda and National Daiji School had both become co-ed, he was completely stunned. The non-stop shocks left his thoughts in total disorder. Thinking back to the first time he had met Lee Ruda, the people around him had repeatedly guessed her gender wrong, but he himself had never once imagined that Lee Ruda could actually be a girl. Now that the truth had suddenly been revealed, the air instantly filled with awkwardness, and neither of them knew how to get along. Lee Ruda tried to speak and ease the atmosphere, but by sheer bad luck she brought the misunderstanding back up again, and even took the opportunity to tease Ryu Woo-jin, saying that he was a deserter who had run from the battlefield. But there was no way Ryu Woo-jin would admit that. Lee Ruda instead spoke to comfort him. The top powerhouse of Dupal High should not have his mentality shaken over something like this. Lee Ruda also directly pointed out that the reason Ryu Woo-jin had kept getting her gender wrong was because he had never seriously faced her properly. After that, she deliberately made a playful gesture to tease Ryu Woo-jin and even told him to come confirm it himself. Looking at Ryu Woo-jin's embarrassed appearance, she finally could not help laughing out loud, and while laughing she said that many things had to be taken slowly, and there was no use being anxious. This series of teasing and provoking completely pushed Ryu Woo-jin to the brink of exploding. He only felt that Lee Ruda was deliberately throwing his thoughts into chaos, yet he could not do a single thing about her. To break this awkward atmosphere, Lee Ruda took the initiative to suggest going to the convenience store to get something to eat, and she even rarely said that this time she would pay herself instead of letting Ryu Woo-jin treat her. That unusual thoughtfulness made even Ryu Woo-jin sigh inwardly that Lee Ruda really was actually a very kind person. But on that peaceful street, danger suddenly appeared. A car went wildly out of control on the road. It charged straight toward the couple by the roadside. The dangerous scene instantly made everyone around cry out in shock. The accident was just about to happen, and Lee Ruda was just about to rush over and save them when Ryu Woo-jin stopped her. Then Ryu Woo-jin made a move that caused Lee Ruda to break down on the spot. He grabbed her and jumped down directly, and in midair, her string of screams immediately rang out. "Wait, senior, I can get down by myself." In the next second, Ryu Woo-jin directly assumed a throwing stance. Lee Ruda was hurled out like a human cannonball. Before the people around could recover from their tension, a huge purple figure came crashing down. The car was forcibly brought to a stop, and the people who witnessed the scene instinctively cried out, thinking a meteor had fallen from the sky. As the dust gradually cleared, Lee Ruda's head was perfectly stuck in the front of the car, and her expression was somehow even a little cute. No one had expected that the one who blocked this disaster would be a girl descending from the sky. She was stuck on the hood like a nail. This was basically a murder attempt meant to drag everyone down together. The man had cheated on his girlfriend of 7 years, and the woman, unable to accept the blow, decided to die together with her boyfriend. But what she never expected was that at the most critical moment, that man actually pushed his affair partner out and used her as a human cushion. The woman who had survived knew that Lee Ruda had saved her, and hurriedly asked whether she was all right. Seeing all this, Ryu Woo-jin instantly flared up inside. This was nothing like the romantic couple scenario he had been expecting. Forget saving his girlfriend. That guy had actually used her as a human speed bump. Lee Ruda also had not expected Ryu Woo-jin to be this angry. She even broke into a cold sweat for that scumbag. He was really done for today. But before Ryu Woo-jin could make his next move, the woman who had been saved struck first instead. Faced with such a selfish and despicable scumbag, she cleanly and decisively broke up with him on the spot. Afterward, she expressed her profound gratitude to Lee Ruda. She even said that she wanted to treat Lee Ruda to a meal. At least half the matter had finally been resolved. Ryu Woo-jin also apologized for having thrown Lee Ruda out just now. Perhaps Lee Ruda was already used to things like this, because she directly said that as long as he treated her to a lobster meal, the matter could be considered over. At the same time, the two of them turned their eyes toward the woman who had caused the accident. Ryu Woo-jin even suspected that she had learned driving from a PE teacher. The way she drove was just far too dangerous. The woman cried harder and harder. She said that not only had she let that man move into her home, she had even helped him pay off 18 online loans. But in the end, he had gotten involved with a younger woman and finally abandoned her completely. Ryu Woo-jin did not have much sympathy for her. He only felt that this was yet another excellent source of material. That man had once been her everything, and now she did not even know why she was still alive. Those words deeply moved Lee Ruda, because she had once said something very similar to Ryu Woo-jin before. But in the next second, Lee Ruda laughed. She said, "Then live for yourself. After all, this is your own life, and you should live it however you want." But the premise was that she herself had to possess enough strength first. Ryu Woo-jin thought she had truly come to her senses this time. But in the very next second, Lee Ruda actually challenged that woman on the spot. The moment Ryu Woojin saw that, he dragged Lee Ruda away directly. Lee Ruda protested wildly the entire way, saying that the other woman was already an adult, so maybe having a serious fight would actually make her feel a lot better. Before long, Lee Ruda sat on the bench, waiting quietly. Ryu Woojin came over carrying steaming hot food. But what Lee Ruda cared about was Ryu Woojin's mood. He had recovered far too quickly, yet this very kind of Ryu Woojin still made it impossible to look away. Lee Ruda told Ryu Woojin that what she had just said to that woman was actually something she was saying to herself too. Only just now did Lee Ruda finally understand what she was truly living for. The answer was that only when she fought Ryu Woojin was she the happiest and the most exhilarated. But immediately after that, Lee Ruda ran into a huge problem. With both hands injured, she had no way to eat by herself at all. So Lee Ruda opened her mouth and waited for Ryu Woojin to feed her. But Ryu Woojin only felt a chill run through him, because all this time, he had treated Lee Ruda as a man. But Lee Ruda calmly told him that she was a girl. In the end, Ryu Woojin still could not out-stubborn Lee Ruda, while Lee Ruda ate with a face full of satisfaction. Ryu Woojin really was still that man worth following. Even when he occasionally showed an ordinary side, it was just as charming. Meanwhile, inside a renovated building, the dim light shone on Choi Jin-ho, who was curled up on the ground. Amid the unending coughs were rough gasps for breath. His pained appearance was completely different from the arrogant and domineering image he had in the past. But even so, he still forced himself to endure the discomfort and stared into the depths of the darkness as he threw out a harsh warning. All resentment and conflict could come at him. But if anyone dared touch his friend, he absolutely would not let it go. But from the darkness came a cold voice of accusation, questioning what right Choi Jin-ho had to hold the status of a white knight society member while also using that name to become the leader of school bullying. In the other party's eyes, Choi Jin-ho had made no contribution to the organization. He had nothing but brute strength and only knew how to cause trouble. Not long ago, he had even become a laughingstock, easily dealt with by a newly transferred student. A person like that had no value at all in the organization. Choi Jin-ho was anxious and furious, roaring out his companions' names over and over, only because he realized that his companion's condition had already become wrong. But all of it was completely useless. At that moment, the thing in the darkness finally revealed itself. It was actually a doll with a sinister and eerie aura. A chill ran through Choi Jin-ho's heart, and he could not help wanting to know what exactly the other side wanted from him. But the doll spoke calmly, saying that Choi Jin-ho was now completely trapped and had nowhere to go. It poured a cup of tea and gestured for Choi Jin-ho to drink it. Choi Jin-ho was full of vigilance and suspected that some unknown drug had been added to the tea, so he refused to drink it no matter what. But in the next second, something completely unexpected happened. His two companions suddenly began fighting each other, and one of them even clamped both hands around the other's neck. The doll coldly told him that he no longer had any capital for negotiation. The only choice left to him was to obediently drink that cup of liquid. In his current state, he had no right to refuse. In the end, Choi Jin-ho had no choice but to drink all the liquid in the cup. The drug began taking effect inside his body. Choi Jin-ho became like a puppet out of control, sounds coming from his mouth that did not sound human at all. The one behind the scenes stood to the side and observed the drug's effects, saying that the overall result was fairly acceptable. But there were still deviations in the details. The transformation had not reached the ideal standard. It casually even gave him a name, calling him the little guy who had delivered himself to the door. The scene shifted, and the light-hearted campus atmosphere instantly washed away the oppression from just now. It was already lunchtime now, and Ryu Woojin was irritated beyond measure. He clung tightly to Yumina and ordered her to immediately delete the short video posted on TikTok. Shin Yi-jin could not understand it at all, and instead thought the video had turned out especially well. Yumina also immediately agreed. Of course she was unwilling to delete it. It turned out that Ryu Woojin himself had accidentally posted that video. He only happened to learn about it the next morning. What made Ryu Woojin even more embarrassed to the point of wanting to dig a hole and hide was that the video had unexpectedly gone viral. A junior girl from his former school had even come specifically to find him, her eyes full of longing, just to see her senior. The junior looked obedient and quiet, but in Ryu Woojin's eyes, this meeting was a complete and utter public execution. Shin Yi-jin objectively advised that since Ryu Woojin was resisting it so much, deleting the video would indeed be reasonable. But Yumina still refused to delete it, because the video had already gone viral. The number of likes had directly soared to 87,000. Such outrageous traffic instantly tempted Yumina. She pestered Ryu Woojin, insisting that he partner with her to film a new video together. She wanted to ride this wave of popularity and chase another viral hit. Pestered to the verge of collapse, Ryu Woojin could not help complaining wildly, accusing Yumina of relying on others for everything and being completely incapable of handling things independently on her own. Seeing that coaxing and pestering were useless, Yumina immediately brought out her bargaining chip, if he did not cooperate with the filming, then in the future she would never again introduce romantic material to Ryu Woojin. That one sentence instantly seized Ryu Woojin's fatal weakness. And so, the two of them took one couple-style photo shoot after another. Even Shin Yi-jin, who was in charge of taking the photos, was becoming envious. If these two really were a couple, they would be way too sweet. Yumina, who had gotten excited while filming, smoothly brought up class president Hong Juan. This was relationship material she had specially recommended to Ryu Woojin. More importantly, he was also Ryu Woojin's deskmate. Hong Juan was wholly devoted to studying and was still single even now, having never been in a relationship before. Ryu Woojin immediately found it absurd and completely could not understand that kind of state where someone only had studying in their eyes. Yumina hurriedly explained the inside story. Hong Juan and their classmate Jin Soo-hee actually had a rather ambiguous atmosphere in their usual interactions. It was just different from the sweet dynamic of Moon Seo-jun and Shin Yi-jin. Ji-won and Soo-hee were more like a bickering pair constantly competing with each other, academic rivals. Ryu Woojin only found it baffling. This could count as romantic material too? Yumina thought he simply did not understand, and planned to go straight into the classroom to introduce the two of them to him. But just a second earlier she had been calling herself a social butterfly and saying she would handle the whole introduction herself. Yet when she reached the classroom door, she suddenly chickened out, making excuses that entering an unfamiliar class was really too awkward and too uncomfortable. Just then, Kang Ji-ho appeared behind them like a ghost and asked whether she was awkward or uncomfortable. He also casually asked whether she and Ryu Woojin were very close, and even reminded her not to do this kind of meaningless absurd thing. Looking at the hesitant Yumina, he only felt that Yumina did things without thinking and had no sense of limits. But he forgot that beside him stood a great demon king. Ryu Woojin slapped a hand onto him. He even enthusiastically struck up a conversation on his own, sighing that ever since their last fight, the two of them had never had the chance to properly chat. He even casually asked how he had been doing lately. Kang Ji-ho was made uncomfortable all over by Ryu Woojin's overly familiar attitude, but Ryu Woojin solemnly declared that the two of them had fought fiercely back then. Kang Ji-ho had even used a weapon and beaten him until he bled, and yet they had become friends through fighting and now could already be considered friends. Those words completely set Kang Ji-ho off. He shook off Ryu Woojin with one motion, turned around, and left. Not long after, the class bell rang. Yasuo spoke and told Kang Ji-ho to go in. Yumina could tell that Yasuo seemed a little angry, as though something had happened, but Ryu Woojin pretended that he had heard nothing at all. In class, Ryu Woojin sat beside Hong Juwon with his arms folded, looking cocky. For the sake of gathering romance material, he took the initiative to greet Hong Juwon. That sudden greeting directly left Hong Juwon at a loss. Just then, it happened to be time for an in-class question. Hong Juwon precisely gave the answer, 1.6, and immediately received public praise from Yasuo, securely defending his title as second in the entire school. The classmates instantly burst into admiration. A top student really was still a top student. Yasuo immediately began explaining the core knowledge points behind the problem in detail, but at that exact moment, Jin Soo-hee arrived late, apologizing repeatedly and saying that she had stayed up all night gaming, then overslept, which was why she was late. Ryu Woojin instantly thought to himself that she was dead. After all, Yasuo was the type who would beat someone up first without asking why. But the result left him greatly disappointed. Yasuo merely reminded her casually to be more careful next time, and Ryu Woojin immediately protested, bluntly complaining that Yasuo's favoritism was way too obvious. Ryu Woojin immediately protested, bluntly complaining that Yasuo's favoritism was way too obvious. Only then did he learn from Hong Juwon that Jin Soo-hee was the #1 student in the second year. Only then did Ryu Woojin suddenly understand. So the first-ranked Jin Soo-hee and second-ranked Hong Juwon were the academic rivals who were always clashing with each other. Wasn't this exactly the bickering pair Yumina had recommended to him? Jin Soo-hee walked straight up to him, surprised that he had actually come to class. What surprised her even more was that Ryu Woojin's grades were actually so good, an absurd contrast to his appearance. She even took the initiative to ask him to study together sometime in the future. After receiving kindness from a top student, Ryu Woojin was instantly moved and repeatedly praised Jin Soo-hee for being kind-hearted, so he silently wrote down a sentence in his notebook: academic performance is directly proportional to character. Of course, she also did not forget to greet Hong Juwon. But the moment she opened her mouth, she called him second place, and Hong Juwon, who had been teased about that over and over, was obviously hurt. He told her to stop provoking him like that. The two of them were making so much noise while arguing that the teacher directly called them out, reminding both the first-ranked and second-ranked students to quiet down. Only then did the two of them hurriedly fall silent and behave. But Ryu Woojin laughed from the side. On one side was the dark human experiment storyline hiding secrets, and on the other was noisy everyday campus life. It seemed that this time, transferring schools really had not been a mistake. The weather outside made today feel like a good day. Yasuo, standing at the podium, even stretched lazily. Ryo Woojin, carrying dreams of becoming a writer, sat in the classroom full of anticipation, wondering what surprises today's co-ed class would bring him. His mind was not on the textbook at all. This time, his goal in entering the classroom could not have been clearer. He stared fixedly at the first-ranked Jin Soo-hee and the second-ranked Hong Ju-won, directly treating them as ready-made romance material. His whole mind waiting to personally witness romantic sparks fly between those two top students. In his imagination, two people who sat next to each other every day should already have developed some sweet feelings. But the calmness before his eyes gradually shattered his fantasy. The two of them did absolutely nothing the whole time, and just as he was about to give up, Jin Soo-hee suddenly turned her head to look at Hong Ju-won. At once, Hong Ju-won reflexively tensed up, having no idea what kind of stunt she was about to pull again. Because he knew that whenever this girl smiled, nothing good ever came of it. And Ryo Woojin also fixed his eyes on the scene. In the next second, a small note was tossed onto Hong Ju-won's desk. Ryo Woojin instantly tensed up, and even excitedly guessed that the note might contain some kind of confession, waiting eagerly for a famous scene to unfold. But Hong Ju-won's thoughts were completely different. What exactly could this thing be that she insisted on passing over during such an important class? In the end, there was not the slightest bit of ambiguity in the note. It was merely one of Jin Soo-hee's pranks, and all it said was a joke about Hong Ju-won being forever second place. Hong Ju-won was immediately both embarrassed and angry, and quickly warned her to stop while she still could, but that was exactly the reaction Jin Soo-hee most wanted to see. She did not even care that class was still in session and laughed out loud on the spot. Hong Ju-won was badly provoked by her, his face full of the expression of someone who had no idea what she was trying to do. Seeing that, Jin Soo-hee not only failed to restrain herself, but continued provoking him, bluntly declaring that if he had the ability, he should beat her with his grades, and then deliberately switched to calling Hong Ju-won by the nickname Cola. Although Ryo Woojin did not quite understand it at first, in his view, this kind of playful bickering was probably a romance that belonged only to the two of them. The commotion they caused was so loud that it instantly drew Yasuo's attention over. Before their eyes, the usually not-so-likable Hong Ju-won was directly criticized by name, with Yasuo mocking him for clearly having top-tier grades while showing nothing impressive in class behavior. Just as Hong Ju-won was about to speak up in protest, Yasuo directly threw several questions at him. Faced with the sudden questioning, Hong Ju-won panicked on the spot and could not even answer the choices. And at the critical moment, it was Jin Soo-hee who secretly prompted him from the side. But who could have expected that she deliberately gave him the wrong answer? The simple-minded Hong Ju-won really did treat her as a life-saving straw and blurted out that answer. As a result, the one sent to stand in the corner was him, though beside him was also Ryo Woojin, who got dragged into it just for watching the show. Yasuo even directly said that this was revenge on Ryo Woojin for leaving him behind alone after school yesterday. After being toyed with again and again, Hong Ju-won was so angry that even his words came out tangled, and he kept shouting Jin Soo-hee's name, feeling utterly wronged and completely unable to understand why he was being punished for no reason at all. Ryo Woojin seized the opportunity and smoothly began probing the relationship between the two of them, puzzled why they could argue nonstop every day even though they did not really seem to have a grudge against each other. Hong Ju-won explained pitifully that it was always Jin Soo-hee who picked fights first, and that no one would be able to put up with it. With one sentence, Ryo Woojin pierced straight to the point, teasing that though Hong Ju-won complained with his mouth, in his heart he actually did not dislike being thought about like that by her at all. Right after that, Hong Ju-won turned around and asked about Ryo Woojin's academic level. Thinking of how Ryo Woojin had solved all the difficult questions in yesterday's in-class test, Ryo Woojin told him that he had only learned a little ahead of schedule back in middle school. As he spoke, he suddenly reacted sharply and thought Hong Ju-won had mistaken him for a new academic rival. Ryo Woojin hurriedly explained his true purpose. Compared with competing with others in grades, the most important thing to him now was collecting romance material. He frankly admitted that he was determined to become a romance webtoon artist. He did not want his precious student days to be left with nothing but dull studying. Because romance stories were an absolutely indispensable part of youth. Hong Ju-won actually agreed with that statement, and it was precisely because of that he had always been doing his utmost to seize first place in the grade. Those words, instead, left Ryo Woojin dumbfounded. But at that moment, Jin Soo-hee popped up again and twisted the knife, specifically mocking the pathetic state of the mighty second-place student, and even excitedly took out her phone to snap a commemorative photo, making Hong Ju-won repeatedly shoo her away and complain that the only reason he was suffering this badly was all because of her. but Jin Soo-hee casually tossed out a line saying that all of this was for his sake. That instantly threw Hong Ji-won's thoughts into chaos. Later, they learned that Hong Ji-won had originally planned to go to the library after school. Jin Soo-hee took the initiative to invite him out for coffee, saying it would count as an apology. But Hong Ji-won did not even think about it and directly refused in a sharp voice. Seeing that she could not invite Hong Ji-won out, Jin Soo-hee immediately changed targets. She actually turned around and invited Ryo Woo-jin to go study with her instead. That sudden invitation directly startled Hong Ji-won, and he hurriedly demanded that Ryo Woo-jin reject it immediately. Ryo Woo-jin had no idea what kind of game the two of them were playing, but in order to get the material he wanted, he still accepted without hesitation, making Hong Ji-won's mentality explode on the spot as he directly called him crazy. The scene shifted, and the library was eerily quiet. What made everyone's jaws drop was that Ryo Woo-jin actually really did sit obediently to one side, and begin explaining problems to the first-ranked Jin Soo-hee. Step by step, he broke apart the solution process, substituting the corresponding formulas into the questions and slowly deriving the answer. That method, both concise and innovative, instantly lit up Jin Soo-hee's eyes. She repeatedly exclaimed that she had never seen such a clever way of solving problems, and she was completely drawn in by this new line of thought. Ryo Woo-jin even casually joked that with this set of logic, even the difficult problems of top scholars could be easily dismantled. A huge amount of new knowledge poured into Jin Soo-hee's mind as if it were being engraved directly into her brain. Even a top student like her could not help sighing that her brain was almost not enough anymore. And just as the two of them were buried in studying, Shin Yi-jin hurriedly sent Moon Seo-jun a message telling him to come to the library immediately. Moon Seo-jun, seeing that she had not replied for quite a while, grew more and more anxious and immediately rushed toward the library. But the moment he stepped into the library, he saw a scene enough to overturn his understanding of reality. Ryo Woo-jin was actually sitting together with Jin Soo-hee, studying side by side, and even more absurdly, Jin Soo-hee's face actually carried obvious admiration. Moon Seo-jun was just about to go over and say hello, but what he did not notice was that behind him, a pair of reddened eyes had already quietly lit up. The small movement nearby still caught Ryo Woo-jin's attention. Jin Soo-hee clearly noticed nothing and asked him what he had seen, while Ryo Woo-jin told her that he had just seemed to hear someone calling his name. It turned out that the person who had just stepped in to stop Moon Seo-jun was Shin Yi-jin, and she had even used her signature move. The four of them were afraid of being discovered and could only huddle behind the bookshelves, not daring to breathe loudly. After being released, Moon Seo-jun's face was still full of disbelief. In his view, the person who should have been studying with Jin Soo-hee was clearly the forever second Hong Ji-won. So how had it become that guy Ryo Woo-jin instead? But very quickly, he made peace with it himself. As long as Ryo Woo-jin was not there to steal the Yi-jin, everything else was fine. But Yumina and Shin Yi-jin immediately declared on the spot that absolutely not. That spot had originally belonged to Hong Ji-won, while Hong Ji-won himself was under so much pressure that he could not say a word. Moon Seo-jun directly exposed the truth. Hong Ji-won had actually secretly liked Jin Soo-hee all along, but because he was too timid, he had never dared to say those feelings out loud. Now that he was watching with his own eyes as someone else stood beside the person he liked, of course he was anxious beyond measure. Hong Ji-won, whose feelings had been exposed on the spot, was both embarrassed and angry, desperately denying it with his mouth, but every sentence around him hit right in the center of his heart. Moon Seo-jun even rarely turned serious and advised him that if he kept standing still and doing nothing, in the end he would only watch the person he liked drift farther and farther away, wasting this bond for nothing. Compared with the atmosphere on their side, so tense it was practically frozen, Ryo Woo-jin and Jin Soo-hee had already temporarily stopped studying, and planned to take a short break first. Jin Soo-hee took out a bottle of banana milk and gave it to Ryo Woo-jin as a thank you gift, thanking him for teaching her so patiently. But because they had different ways of drinking it, the two of them somehow ended up having a small disagreement. Ryo Woo-jin was used to sticking in the straw and drinking it directly. Jin Soo-hee, however, preferred to shake the milk evenly first and then drink it slowly. Halfway through chatting, Jin Soo-hee casually pulled out a packet of buldak hot sauce. That movement made Ryo Woo-jin freeze completely, almost thinking that she was under too much study pressure and was about to do something outrageous. Aside from Hong Ji-won, the expressions on the other people's faces were almost exactly the same. But no one had expected that Jin Soo-hee actually had her own logic. The spicy taste could just happen to relieve the tension brought on by studying, and the hot sauce drink she personally mixed actually tasted unexpectedly good. But in Ryo Woo-jin's eyes, that combination was simply dark cuisine that was impossible to swallow. During their casual conversation, the thick notebook by Ryo Woo-jin's hand also aroused Jin Soo-hee's curiosity, and after asking several times, Ryo Woo-jin finally confessed that it was actually his romance material notebook. So the ultimate goal behind his transfer was to become a romance comic creator, and the campus interactions and shy emotions he saw in daily life would all be casually written down by him and slowly accumulated into creative inspiration. After hearing about his dream, Jin Soo-hee was genuinely worried for him and could not understand why he insisted on choosing such a difficult and uncertain path. After learning that the notebook was specially used to record daily romance material, she even deliberately smiled and asked whether the time she and Ryo Woo-jin had spent studying together had made his inspiration explode or his heart beat faster. That string of teasing made Ryo Woo-jin laugh helplessly. The light, warm atmosphere between the two of them also slowly reached its peak. Very soon, the topic landed on Jin Soo-hee and Hong Ju-won. Ryo Woo-jin was curious. Even though the two of them bickered and fought like they were dating, they also always stuck together to study. The atmosphere was clearly not bad, yet somehow every single matter became a head-to-head clash. Jin Soo-hee instinctively replied that this was simply how they had always gotten along. They spoke as if they disliked each other, but in reality they were always quietly paying attention to each other's every move. Combining that with what he had observed over the past few days, Ryo Woo-jin pierced the core with a single sentence. On the surface, they looked like they were competing with each other, but in reality both of them were carefully hiding their affection. It was just that both of them were too restrained, and neither dared to directly say those feelings out loud. Those words instantly struck right at Jin Soo-hee's true thoughts, leaving her angry and helpless all at once. A second ago, she had still felt that Ryo Woo-jin seemed pretty reliable. The next second, she could not help complaining that saying you could see through other people's hearts just by looking at their faces was way too ridiculous. In a huff, she packed up her things and got up to go home. But because she left too quickly, Jin Soo-hee left behind that packet of hot sauce. Ryo Woo-jin picked it up and immediately chased out of the library. Along the way, he opened his mouth several times, wanting to return the item to her. But just after leaving the school gate, a few hooligans loitering nearby directly surrounded Jin Soo-hee. They said they had a miracle medicine that could quickly improve grades and coaxed her to close her eyes and give it a try. Jin Soo-hee raised her hand and slapped the thing away. What a joke. As someone who had firmly held first place in the grade for years, why would she need something like that? She directly said that she had been first place since middle school and simply did not need this kind of crooked shortcut medicine. On the spot, she saw through the fact that this group were nothing but street punks trying to hit on her. Seeing that their attempt had failed, the punks instantly turned hostile, immediately beginning to threaten her and even preparing to use force. At exactly that moment, Ryo Woo-jin also caught up, and the punks mistook him for Jin Soo-hee's boyfriend and declared that they would deal with him too. This sudden scene left the four people who had chased after them completely bewildered. No one had expected things to become this absurd. Hong Ju-won's first reaction was to go find a teacher and call the police while he was at it, but Moon Seo-jun raised a hand first and stopped him. He signaled that things were already over at this point. Hong Ju-won looked utterly confused. Clearly it was those troublemaking punks who should be handed over to the police. Only after pressing further did he finally understand. When Moon Seo-jun said things were over, he was not referring to Ryo Woo-jin, but to that group of punks, because he knew very well just how strong Ryo Woo-jin really was. On the other side, the punks had already grown impatient and started yelling at Ryo Woo-jin, even threatening that if he dared get in their way, they would beat him up too. Hearing that, the corner of Ryo Woo-jin's mouth instead curled upward. But in the next second, the other side suddenly made a move. Ryo Woo-jin directly spat out a mouthful of blood, and then his whole body collapsed to the ground. That scene left everyone dumbfounded. Moon Seo-jun's face was full of doubt. Could Ryo Woo-jin really be this weak? Jin Soo-hee also froze. Looking at Ryo Woo-jin lying on the ground, the buzzcut guy wore a mocking face and cursed that he was just a useless piece of trash. But immediately after, the scene in front of them instantly changed Yumina and the others' expressions. Blood kept pouring from Ryo Woo-jin's mouth and nose, making him look especially terrifying. But Shin Yi-jin was not stupid at all. She immediately remembered that Ryo Woo-jin could even endure a blazing fire. Yumina's eyes were also full of shock. In Moon Seo-jun's mind, there even flashed the image of him jumping straight down from a rooftop. There was no way they would believe that someone ridiculously strong like him could not withstand a single punch from that guy. But Hong Ju-won did not know any of this. He thought someone was really about to die, and immediately wanted to call the police. And yet right at that moment, Ryo Woo-jin suddenly shouted to Hong Ju-won for help. Hong Ju-won was stunned out of his mind. He knew very well what he himself was capable of. Seeing that, the buzzcut guy casually slapped Ryo Woo-jin again. Ryo Woo-jin went along with it and fell to the ground. Moon Seo-jun finally could not bear to watch anymore and said he was going over to save him right now. But before he could move, Ryo Woo-jin sternly shouted at him to stop. He simply could not understand what kind of game Ryo Woo-jin was playing, and bluntly said that Ryo Woo-jin was a lunatic who had put all his stats into brute strength. And right now, he was clearly trying to go help him. At that moment, Shin Yijin suddenly spoke up. That was Buldak hot sauce. The moment Moon Seo-jun heard that, he also immediately reacted, starting to suspect that everything happening before them was a setup arranged by Ryu Woojin himself. But even so, he still had to admit it. Even though Ryu Woojin had always been afraid of spicy food, he now still dared to hold that much Buldak sauce in his mouth. For the sake of material, he was really going all out. But Yumina did not agree with that, because during the day she had just asked Ryu Woojin what kind of challenge content he wanted to film. At the time, Yumina had suggested that he go dance, but Ryu Woojin refused no matter what, saying that Lee Ruta was her fan, and if she saw it, would he not be laughed to death? In the end, Yumina could only change her suggestion and tell him to try the super spicy chicken leg challenge, and at that moment, Ryu Woojin had already felt his heart sink. So Yumina knew best just how afraid of spicy food Ryu Woojin really was. He was basically a purebred weakling when it came to spice, which meant that his cries for help right now were not an act at all, because that rising wave of spiciness had truly completely wrecked him. In pain, he screamed miserably while desperately calling for Hong Juwon to save him, wailing in despair that he really could not hold on much longer. Hong Juwon was frantic, but he usually did nothing but bury himself in his studies and had no strength to fight with, so what could he possibly use to save Ryu Woojin? The situation was becoming more and more dangerous. Jin Suhee immediately rushed up and grabbed another punk, telling him to stop at once. If they kept hitting him, Ryu Woojin would really be in trouble. Hong Juwon could see it clearly. If this dragged on any longer, even Jin Suhee would get pulled into it too. Moon Seo-jun immediately proposed a plan. The two of them would go in together, stop the other side first, and then find a chance to rescue Ryu Woojin. Finally gathering his courage, Hong Juwon rushed out with a stiff upper lip. The buzzcut guy took one look at him and instantly started mocking him, saying that he looked as weak as a chopstick. But when Ryu Woojin saw this, he suddenly laughed instead, because he had always believed in Hong Juwon. He even gave him live advice on the spot. If you are going to hit him right in the solar plexus. Hong Juwon threw a punch into the buzzcut guy's stomach. On the surface, it looked like it had no effect at all. The buzzcut guy even burst out laughing on the spot, thinking this guy was way too pathetic. Even a kindergarten kid punching him might have had more strength than that. But the moment his words fell, his whole body was sent flying backward. The seemingly ordinary Hong Juwon had actually burst out with tremendous strength in an instant. The other punk was dumbstruck on the spot and had no idea what had just happened. He only felt that Hong Juwon had somehow become absurdly fierce. But the most confused person was actually Hong Juwon himself. He had even started doubting whether he had been playing weak and hiding his strength all along. But only Yumina and the other saw it clearly. Hey, did you see that just now? Yeah, it was too fast. I didn't see it all clearly. But I saw Woojin throw a rock in an instant. The other punk grabbed Hong Juwon by the collar and viciously demanded to know whether he was tired of living. Hong Juwon was directly frightened by that intimidation, and immediately lowered his head to admit fault and beg for mercy. Watching from the side, Ryu Woojin almost wanted to smack Hong Juwon on the head. He had worked so hard to create this situation, only for it to be ruined just like that. But immediately after, another twist appeared. That person suddenly covered his eyes and let out a scream. Hong Juwon was completely unable to make sense of it. His mind even began wandering wildly, and he started wondering whether he had suddenly awakened Conqueror's Haki unconsciously. The two punks immediately groaned in misery, lamenting that even being a punk was getting harder and harder nowadays. In the end, it was still the classic routine. They threw out one harsh threat and then turned and ran. At this point, Hong Juwon still had not fully recovered his senses, but Jin Suhee's voice had already reached him at once. Ryu Woojin, are you okay? Come here quickly. You've lost so much blood. Hold on a little longer. I'm calling an ambulance right now. But at that moment, she suddenly sensed something was off and caught that familiar smell. Only then did she realize that Ryu Woojin had actually drunk an entire bottle of Buldak hot sauce. Jin Suhee could not understand it at all, but Ryu Woojin told her that if it was for the sake of shaping the most perfect story in his heart, he had long ago steeled himself not to fear even death. Jin Suhee only took it as nonsense. Seeing how bad his condition was, she felt what he needed most right now was water, but Ryu Woojin specifically asked for iced black tea, and the moment Hong Juwon heard it, he immediately turned and went to buy some. As soon as Hong Juwon left, Ryu Woojin motioned for Jin Suhee to come over, then leaned in and whispered something in her ear. Jin Suhee also finally understood what Ryu Woojin was really trying to say, and immediately slapped him on the spot. You idiot. That was true enough? But how could I possibly say something like that out loud? She asked Ryu Woojin to help her. But in the end, she still gathered her courage and seriously said one sentence of thanks. Thank you for saving me just now, Hong Juwon. She even added softly that he had really looked handsome just now. Hearing those words, Hong Juwon froze completely. The moment Jin Suhee saw that, She quickly urged him to go buy the drink already, and even deliberately called him directly by his full name. It was as if Hong Ji-won were allergic to that name, and he immediately protested seriously, forbidding her from calling him by his full name. Jin Soo-hee directly fired back that if he did not like it, then he should go take first place. Ryo Woo-jin instantly felt that he had obtained excellent material. Watching other people fall in love could actually make someone's blood boil this much. This kind of romance was practically explosive. Watching that flame soar upward, even Jin Soo-hee was dumbfounded. Shin Yi-jin and the others also had not expected that this time actual fire would come shooting out. And on the spot they decided that under these circumstances, he absolutely had to be sent to the emergency room immediately. Hong Ji-won had just been about to move when he suddenly noticed a medicine bottle on the ground. He froze for a moment and casually picked it up. Seeing that, Jin Soo-hee was so exasperated she nearly laughed. "Hey, Hong Ji-won, hurry up already." Only then did Hong Ji-won stuff the medicine bottle into his pocket, though he had once again been called by his full name. Seeing that Ryo Woo-jin truly was about to collapse, he no longer had the energy to argue about such things. The scene shifts. Standing in the school restroom, Ryo Woo-jin smelled that unique scent in the air and could not help sighing inwardly. This was the kind of atmosphere only a co-ed school restroom could have. It was completely a different world from the boys' restroom at the all-boys school he used to attend. This unique ambience actually carried a kind of romance too, and had even become a rare piece of creative material. So he wrote in his notebook that the restroom in a co-ed school was unexpectedly filled with a pleasant fragrance. As a romance-themed rookie webtoon author determined to debut, Ryo Woo-jin completely immersed himself in that atmosphere, turning every tiny and chaotic feeling of this moment into his own romantic realization. When his emotions surged to the very peak, he suddenly lost himself and could not help letting out an uncontrolled shout, scaring the other students into thinking a pervert had entered the restroom. Even after returning to the classroom, he still had not recovered. Hong Ji-won quickly asked him how he was doing, and it was obvious that Ryo Woo-jin had been put through the ringer. But the words coming out of his mouth were still totally off track. Love was originally sour and painful. Jin Soo-hee also could not help sighing that Ryo Woo-jin had just gotten beaten up badly yesterday and had already been seriously injured, yet now the only after effect left was a stomachache. Ryo Woo-jin, however, directly said that the reason he could still be safe and sound right now was all thanks to Hong Ji-won. Even at a time like this, he was still desperately trying to pair those two up. That really did a number on Hong Ji-won. Even now, this simpleton still believed that some kind of powerful combat ability was hidden inside him. He had even already started imagining on his own that maybe he was born with an incredible talent for fighting, when a voice suddenly drew their attention. "Hey, Ji-ho, have you taken this medicine before?" They said it was a miracle drug given by an acquaintance, and rumor has it that after taking it, your grades can immediately shoot up, strongly recommending that he try it. Not far away, Jin Soo-hee immediately sensed something wrong. She recognized it as the exact fake medicine being forcibly peddled by outsiders earlier. The price was absurd and it had no real effect, but even so, plenty of students still fell for it blindly. Hong Ji-won also followed up by breaking down the logic, pointing out that this was a textbook placebo effect. The medicine itself had no effect on improving grades at all. It was only the high price that produced psychological suggestion in reverse, making students mistakenly believe that the drug was really starting to work. Kang Ji-ho looked at the medicine bottle in his hand. In the next second, he threw it straight out the window, and casually advised his buddy not to take it either. What use could something like that possibly have for the dead last student in the whole school? What, would it help him rise to second to last? The friend immediately felt his words were way too cutting. Jin Soo-hee added that the guy in the green clothes was exactly the culprit dragging down the class average. At that moment, the teacher walked into the classroom and told the whole class to sit down and steady themselves first. Hong Ji-won noticed that Ryo Woo-jin's condition was obviously not right. Thinking back to how he had swallowed that ultra-spicy buldak sauce yesterday, he suspected it was the after-effects kicking in and quickly urged him to go to the infirmary. After arriving at the infirmary, the school nurse saw that he had abdominal pain, and calmly remarked that his constitution was way too weak, practically frail to the point of collapsing from the wind. She turned around to look for the usual stomach medicine, only to discover that all the normal stomach medicine had somehow expired. Ryo Woo-jin did not really care and even wanted to just take the expired medicine to tide himself over, but the nurse rejected that on the spot. Yet in the next second, Ryo Woo-jin's expression instantly changed. The nurse took out a bottle of homemade unidentified medicine and calmly stated that this was a special stomach remedy personally prepared by her. Looking at that eerie bottle of liquid, Ryo Woo-jin was full of resistance and immediately questioned it, saying that this thing looked nothing like stomach medicine at all. But the nurse was extraordinarily certain and even bluntly said that she had already completed a full set of clinical trials on her own younger brother, so the safety was absolutely under control. That sentence made Ryo Woojin's scalp go numb on the spot. He hurriedly asked whether her younger brother was even still alive now, and could not help irritably complaining that this method was way too outrageous, so he would rather just go to a pharmacy outside school. This conversation, of all things, happened to be overheard by Yasuo outside the door. Seeing that blue medicine was about to be injected into him, Ryo Woojin instantly turned pale, crying out in terror for help. He even shouted that the nurse was about to inject him with copper sulfate, and he was practically on the verge of losing control. Hearing that, Yasuo also looked stunned. Thinking of that blue medicine, he hurriedly told Ryo Woojin not to worry. That stuff really was stomach medicine. Even though Yasuo personally guaranteed it, Ryo Woojin still felt uneasy all over. But in the next second, he suddenly caught the key point and sharply realized something. Wait, could Yasuo be the younger brother used in the clinical trials? The nurse's face darkened and she quietly snapped at Yasuo. Didn't I already tell you? Don't act like you know me at school. Good grief, these two really were brother and sister. Only then did Ryo Woojin fully realize that the school nurse before him was actually the secretly lurking night teacher. With a cold tone, she pressured him and directly threatened Ryo Woojin with a copper sulfate injection to make him behave, and Ryo Woojin instantly caved. Just as the atmosphere had calmed down, the nurse began questioning Yasuo, asking what exactly he had suddenly come here for. Yasuo complained pitifully that his older sister never replied to his messages. The two of them had obviously agreed earlier to prepare their mother's birthday present together, and he did not want to end up like last year again, paying for everything by himself while his sister just scribbled a greeting card and called it a day. The nurse immediately shifted the topic and instead asked in surprise how Yasuo had returned to his original appearance. Not long ago, his stress-induced aging had clearly become severe to the extreme. She even suspected that Yasuo had secretly been physically punishing students again. Yasuo immediately denied it, saying that he had merely had a fierce fight with Ryo Woojin in the gymnasium. It was exactly because of the immense pressure brought by that time. That before he could even finish speaking, the nurse dropped him to the floor with a single injection. Ryo Woojin instantly panicked and hurriedly demanded to know what she had injected him with, but the nurse calmly explained that it was a special nerve blocker she had prepared herself. His vital signs had all been stabilized, so he absolutely would not die. Ryo Woojin was completely stunned. He even developed a sense of shared misery, because he himself was also always firmly suppressed by his older sister's overbearing style. The nurse immediately apologized to him. It's all my younger brother's fault. I'm really sorry. It's okay. On the contrary, back then, I was the one who caused you even more trouble. The nurse handed him another bottle of oral restorative medicine, explaining that the injection would have had a stronger effect, but that the oral medicine would be more or less the same. Then she forcefully demanded that Ryo Woojin drink it immediately. Seeing that he was still hesitating, Yasuo, lying on the floor, also started urging him to drink quickly. He even bluntly complained that although his sister's personality really was not great, when it came to actual fighting and medicine compounding, her skill was undeniably the real deal. The nurse even remarked that he had recovered really quickly, just as expected of her younger brother. Seeing this, Ryo Woojin no longer hesitated and tilted his head back to drink it. The effect was immediate. He instantly felt his stomach become much better. The teacher had saved Ryo Woojin twice before and after, which gradually made him start trusting her. And at the same time Ryo Woojin could not help asking the question that had been bothering him. He truly could not understand why his older sister would come to a middle school like this to be a teacher, because she did not look like someone who would do that kind of work at all. Seeing that Ryo Woojin was basically fine now, the nurse immediately urged him to hurry back to class, and also reminded him that midterm exams were already approaching, telling him to watch his health and prepare well. Only then did Ryo Woojin suddenly realize that the exams were actually already almost here. In the next second, she roughly threw her gaze toward Yasuo as well and told him to hurry back to class too. Poor Yasuo's body was still tingling and numb at that moment. Moon Seojun was hurrying this way in a rush. Almost there. Gumin, hang in there. The moment Ryo Woojin heard it, he immediately recognized Moon Seojun's voice. If it's Teacher Anna, she'll definitely be able to help us solve everything. But Gumin told him to let go of him, and even said that he still had to go study. Hearing that, Moon Seojun became even more anxious, feeling that he was practically losing his mind. He had clearly already passed out just now, and in his current condition. But he did not notice at all that Gumin was clutching a pen tightly in his hand. In the next second, he suddenly raised the pen high. Shut up. This is the most critical moment right now. I told you, my concentration is at its peak right now. Looking at Moon Seojun collapsed on the ground, all three of Ryo Woojin's group were stunned. This was the first time since he transferred here that he had run into something like this. A bleeding wound had suddenly appeared across Moon Seojun's back. Ryu Woojin grabbed Go Gyumin in one yank as his consciousness was already beginning to scatter. Suppressing his anger, he demanded to know what exactly he had done to Moon Seo-jun, and whether he really had a death wish. But at this point, Go Gyumin could not hear any outside voices at all. And fragmented bits of knowledge kept spilling from his mouth. Chemical bonds, molecules, polarity, polar covalent. These chemistry terms and English grammar were all tangled together chaotically, constantly spilling out in his delirious muttering. Chemistry terms and English grammar were all tangled in a mess, with English grammar crammed chaotically into his out-of-control mind. Hydroxide ions, moles per liter. He repeated over and over that it was too late. His mind was filled with nothing but scattered formulas, and his reasoning had long since broken apart. Even Ryu Woojin was stunned into silence. He clearly had not even done anything yet. At that moment, Moon Seo-jun hurriedly stopped Ryu Woojin, preventing him from getting any closer to the out-of-control Gyumin. He said he himself was fine, but begged Ryu Woojin to think of a way to restrain Gyumin first, and also told him that Gyumin had suddenly become like this in the middle of class. Anna quickly treated the wound on Moon Seo-jun's back, and casually joked that he and Ryu Woojin were practically the two VIPs of the infirmary. Looking at Gyumin, whose breathing had finally become a little more stable, the teacher made a preliminary judgment that this was an acute panic attack triggered by pre-exam stress. After that, she asked Moon Seo-jun to explain everything from beginning to end. Moon Seo-jun began talking about how Go Gyumin had seemed like a completely different person lately. The two of them were both students in class 4 of the second year. Although Gyumin had never really been outgoing, his emotions had always shown plainly on his face. Whether he was happy or irritated, he had never hidden it. But in just these past few days, it was as if he had completely sealed himself off. He ate lunch alone in hiding, and no matter who called him during breaks, he would not go. At first, Moon Seo-jun had thought he was just in a bad mood. But as time went on, Gyumin seemed to lose even his emotions. He became numb and silent, like his soul had been sucked away. Then during class, Gyumin suddenly fainted. Moon Seo-jun immediately carried him on his back and sprinted all the way into the infirmary. He guessed that the fact that midterms were getting close had completely crushed Gyumin under the pressure. But just then, Ryu Woojin suddenly spoke up and asked how Gyumin usually did in school. After learning that he was only around the middle of the class, Ryu Woojin suddenly remembered something strange. He was almost certain that the reason for Gyumin's breakdown was not exam stress at all. It was those unidentified grade-boosting drugs being sold by people outside the school. Because yesterday at the entrance to the library, someone had specifically stopped students preparing for exams and sold that kind of pill that claimed it could quickly raise grades. Even Jin Soo-hee, the top student in the entire school, had almost gotten entangled with them. After hearing this, Yasuo also spoke up, saying that this was obviously a scam targeting students. But if they really wanted to prove this guess, they would first have to find a sample of the drug and test it. But after being exposed, those people selling the drugs had already taken all the bottles away, and left nothing at the scene. At that moment, Ryu Woojin suddenly remembered that Kong Jiho seemed to have thrown away a bottle before, and the location was by the riverside outside Building 3. The moment Moon Seo-jun heard that, he immediately wanted to rush out and look for evidence. But Teacher Anna stopped him on the spot and raised a more realistic issue instead. No matter what the truth behind this was, many teachers and students had personally seen Go Gyumin stab Moon Seo-jun with a pen just now. That already constituted a serious case of armed school violence. According to school rules, the school violence committee would definitely intervene, and Gyumin would definitely receive severe punishment. This school had always handled such matters by only looking at the result and never the cause. They would only focus on the fact that he had hurt someone, and absolutely no one would seriously investigate why Gyumin had suddenly become like this. But Moon Seo-jun still sincerely begged the teacher not to report the incident just yet, because he knew that Gyumin was originally a very gentle person and could never have done something like this for no reason. After a moment of silence, Teacher Anna still agreed to suppress the matter for the time being. But Yasuo seriously reminded Moon Seo-jun that if the thing about the drug was true, then Gyumin had to go to the hospital immediately for a complete drug screening. But Anna directly rejected sending him to the hospital. Yasuo immediately grew agitated and bluntly said that this was no small matter. How could they brush it aside so casually? But Anna instead asked him, "Do you think Gyumin would willingly touch something like that? He's just an ordinary high school student who was deceived into accidentally taking a so-called miracle drug for raising grades. It's not like he knowingly got involved with contraband drugs. Just because he was tricked once, should he be labeled as drug-related and have his life ruined? That kind of handling would not be fair." Yasuo only felt that his sister was clearly favoring Gyumin. Anna was silent for a long time, and only then slowly began talking about the true meaning of education. Everyone makes mistakes when they are young. more than simply punishing them. What teachers should do is give students a chance to correct themselves. Guidance will always be more important than punishment. Those words also instantly made Yasuo think of himself. Because back then, a teacher had once given him a second chance too. Judging from the messages in the group chat, everyone had already split up to search through Gyumin's school bag and locker. But the medicine bottle by the river was not found either, as if someone had taken it away in advance, and the entire trail of clues was instantly cut off completely. At this moment, inside Class 1, Jin Suhee looked at Hong Ruan and teased that the flustered way he had run to the bathroom in the middle of class was really funny. No wonder he could only be the eternal second place. This seemingly unrelated conversation quietly drew in another sudden turn of events.